Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and welcome to episode 20 of the DGA podcast. I am your host, Vince. With me in the studio is my co-host,
Idly!
Idly. Yay! And we do have a special guest today. Nick here is an awesome GM. He's one of our friends that we game with on a regular basis, and he just introduced us to D&D. Say hi, Nick.
How's it going, everybody?
Hi.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so today's podcast is going to be somewhat a little different. It's going to be very Dungeons and Dragons heavy. Nick just introduced us to Dungeons and Dragons. We created our characters, and I think we're in, I don't know, is it like 6 or 7 hours now into the, what was the campaign that we're running?
It's called The Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's one of the... If you played 5e, there's a good chance you've played Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's kind of like the intro campaign that most people get introduced to 5th edition with.
That was my next question. So Phandelver, are different campaigns like structured differently to where this has an easy difficulty, this has a medium, this has a hard difficulty? Is there something set up like that, or...?
I would typically say no. I think, and the fact is that a lot of people don't even run campaigns; they just come up with their own. So, I mean, it's sort of they're much more in control of the difficulty, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the most part, dungeon masters will find themselves either scaling things up or down, anyways, depending on how big the group is and that sort of stuff. So it's always kind of this balance you're trying to reach as a DM.
Mm-hmm.
So they do set like a baseline for you, but that doesn't mean it's perfect for your party in the first place, anyways.
And this is, I'm already getting into the nitty gritty without even getting into our top 5 discussion. So what happens when you complete a campaign and you've got your character that might be like level 10, 15 or whatever, and you want to start a new campaign? Does the GM have to balance the new world, or the new adventure based off of your adventure's old level, or can't you bring heroes from one adventure to another? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of ways that you could handle that. You could, as a DM, just sort of mold an existing campaign to your now character levels.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, like, for example, I guess I don't want to spoil anything since you guys are playing it.
No.
But Lost Mines of Phandelver does end at a level typically. Like, you'll find yourself at this level when it ends. And then there's another campaign that pretty much, not exactly, but pretty much picks up where it left off.
Oh, okay.
So, like, you can go and, I run my campaigns on Roll20,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a lot of modules that you could use to make a lot of the tedious work not as tedious.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go into Roll20's marketplace and sort of search, and it might say, for adventurers level 10 to 15, for adventurers level, 3 to 5. So
That's cool.
So, yeah, depending on what your player character's levels are, there's probably something that you could do, whether it be custom fitting or just an existing one for that level.
And I think that's what you meant about Phandelver being an intro campaign, and that would be ideal for new players because they start at level 1. And the goblins that we first faced in that campaign were, they weren't like pushovers, but they are definitely not hobgoblins compared to...
Well, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it. Go for it.
The thing that's cool about goblins is they can be dangerous even for higher level characters, because the thing about goblins is that they're supposed to be very resourceful and very tricky. And they're not typically, I guess it's not set up to play that way in the goblins that you've been fighting, but for example, if you went into a goblin's lair, there might be like so many traps, but that by the time you end up actually fighting a goblin, half the party was like half dead anyways. So they're supposed to be like very tricky in that way.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like you remember
no.
Oh yeah, that one cave that we went into, the Bugbear's Cave.
And the water came out and washed you guys right out.
Right.
Imagine that times like 1,000, basically.
Holy cow! Have you been pulling punches, or was it actually set up that? I'm just curious.
No.
Okay.
No, because, and I don't want to give any. If you guys haven't been watching, it's on Vince's YouTube channel, so go ahead and watch the campaign there. But the last one where you guys were about to face off with that green dragon, the young green dragon, I didn't pull the punch on that, and that was a breath weapon that dealt 12d6 poison damage. So it's 12d6s, and that's how much damage it does.
Oh my god!
And if Drax hadn't passed his con save, he would have been instantly dead, 100%.
Seriously? So wow. So it's not. Holy cow! That is ridiculous.
So to answer your question, I typically try not to pull punches because it's nice to have like that, like we're not definitely going to win sort of feeling. You know what I mean? Like there has to be something at stake, right? So
one thing that Green Dragon Encounter taught me was that this world was more sandboxy than linear. Like in RPGs that you play in, say, a video game, the game will consistently like progress you to, okay, you're around level 5, so we're going to throw these level 5 enemies at you. Oh, now you're level 10, we're going to throw level 10 enemies. We're only level 3, 2 or 3 in this campaign, and we're already fighting this green dragon that can one-shot us. So I'm getting the sense that Phandelver is more sandboxy, you can do what you want. It's more of like in an MMO like World of Warcraft, this is a typical level 80 zone or a level 60 zone or level 40 zone. We entered like a level 80 zone as a level 2 character and almost got destroyed by this green. That's what I'm getting the sense. Is that right with Phandelver?
I mean, in a way, yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't want to, again, give away too much, but there's a lot of like side quests that can be done along the way. And you guys, I kind of joked about this with some of the other players, where you guys are kind of speedrunning it. Like you guys like, forget the side quests, we're going right down that main quest chain. And like, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think the book kind of expects the players to be around level 3 at that level. But even at that level, the breath will one-shot you if you don't save. So
that's crazy.
Like, I mean, when I read it, I was like, "What do you mean it does 12d6 points? They're gonna have like 20 health, like they're gonna die instantly." So it's just the way it is. It's just the way it was set up, and
that's what I wanted to ask on our next session. Was are there bulletin boards? Like in an RPG, there's typically like a notice board or something that you can read and pick up these side quests. And I was going to ask you on our next session, like, if we go into town and look for those, are they there and can we do them? So just to grind out levels so that before we go on our main quest, we're able to.
You mean like jobs?
Yeah, like side quests. Like,
well, yeah, that's basically what.
Like the Agatha thing is a side quest. I'm pretty certain. But I gotta wonder, like that one town that we were in. Was there a notice board somewhere that we missed that could have given us more side jobs to accept that were easier than what we're facing now? You know what I mean? So that's going to be one of my next questions in the next session, just to try and grind out more things once we get past the castle, hopefully.
I will say that if you were to look around, I'm sure you would find some stuff to do. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I will also say this. I mentioned this to some of the other players as well. There was a big plot hook that you guys, I'm not going to say ignored, but just sort of pushed to the side for now, because it makes sense what you guys are doing. Our friend is, in danger. We're not going to dally around while he could be, every day, every second could count sort of thing. It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
But there is other stuff out there to
I figured.
Sort of do. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we'll get into, we have a very loose and dirty top 5 this week. I was playing around with this. Like, I wanted to do like a top 5 D&D classes, but it doesn't make sense for me to come up with such a list for myself and Idly when we've only played half a run, or even maybe a quarter of a run at this point. Like, Nick would be able to come up with a list probably because he's experienced with it. But I didn't want to say, top 5 classes of a game I've never played before. That doesn't... what authority do I have to even come up with something like that? So I figured...
It would be your opinion, right?
Yeah, well, like, but here's the thing. I could look at a list and go, oh, that looks cool, but if you've never played that class to know how it actually plays, then how can you really know if it's a top class that you would like? You know what I mean?
That's why Nick is here, to shoot you down.
Yeah, basically, yeah, to say that we're wrong. Yeah, that our opinion is wrong.
You say that, but I haven't played every single class either.
Okay.
I have a pretty good understanding of how every class works, but that doesn't mean that I, know personally how they play. I've read a lot about all of them.
Gotcha.
So some of them are just going to be on, what I imagine them to be like as well.
Cool. So I'm thinking what we'll do is I came up with a list of classes that I play in regular MMOs and RPGs, ones that I'm familiar with. They may or may not equate to D&D, but these are the kinds of classes that I would like to play. And I think Idly did something similar. And I think, Nick, did you come up with a list for D&D solely? Is that what you did?
Yeah, mine. I'm
Okay.
sticking to D&D for this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I guess we'll do those, just a general run through of our list, and then we'll tackle each D&D class individually, and we can talk about pros, cons, and anything special about that class that Nick happens to, know and want to share. So I guess we'll start with Idly. What was your 5? Instead of doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 each, we'll just list off your 5, starting from 5, work your way down, and I guess we'll just quickly talk about them.
So my 5th one was shapeshifter.
A shapeshifter.
Kind of relative to a druid, because I could have sworn that I read somewhere in the manual, in the D&D manual, that druids can also kind of shapeshift. Am I wrong? I have no idea.
No, let me interject. I'm not going to interrupt you. But druids get something called wild shape, which is something I need to actually talk to our druid player about, because she's not utilizing this at all, and she got it at level 2.
Wow! How dare she?
I'm telling you, man, it's like a D&D sin.
With goblins, goblin characters with her.
a druid that's against shapeshifting. That would be an awesome lore thing. Okay.
That would be interesting.
Oh my gosh, it's funny. Oh wait, were you finished?
Yeah, I didn't want to take over, so yeah, please go ahead.
Is there a game that has that shapeshifter? I mean, the MMO World of Warcraft has a druid class, and you can shapeshift into a bear, a tiger, and like a treant. Bear is tanky, tiger is damage, and the treant is healing. Is there a game that you play that has the druid in it, hun? Or is it just in theory that's what you would like?
It's just in theory, but
Okay.
I do remember, like, Heroes of the Storm, one of the characters can transform from its regular form to a wolf. And I think he's actually in WoW. Rhaegar? Is that Rhaegar?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually a shaman in WoW, which is, they have a similar thing.
Cool.
There we go. So the 4th... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, is that one guy with the pistol? He has the pistols, and then he transforms into a werewolf?
No, that's Greymane.
That's Greymane, yeah.
Greymane,
But that's
okay.
a good one. That's
Okay.
another good one.
Yeah.
And then there's the 4th one is a monk who's like a martial artist, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, short range melee fighter.
Yeah. And then there's a sorcerer, which is my 3rd.
Okay.
And my 2nd is a witch hunter.
Okay.
But I consider a witch hunter like a mix between a rogue and a cleric. Like, I want someone like a rogue, but is not that evil or mean. But I want like someone who will like who reminds me of what's his face, the vampire hunter guy,
Van Helsing.
Van Helsing, yeah.
Van Halen,
So
yes.
yeah.
Jump. Might as well.
I think of him like a mix between a rogue and a cleric. A cleric doing good deeds, rogue because he's just a badass.
So, like a vampire hunter kind of thing. Okay.
And then my number 1 is, of course, a bard.
A bard. And that's the class that you're playing now in our campaign.
Yeah. I'm having so much fun with her.
Cool. All right, so Nick, what was your top 5?
Okay. So I started off as number 5 with the barbarian. I think that it's just such a flavorful, like, cool concept. This like unarmored berserker just like charging into the front line with a big 2-handed weapon and just wreaking havoc. They have this class ability that's called rage. So when you rage, you take half damage from pretty much from a lot of weapon attacks. It gets a little more complicated than that once you start going down the levels a bit and they get more cool stuff. But I just think it's so cool. You know what I mean? Just very like BA sort of character where you can just run in there and throw caution into the wind.
I have a hard time with that's actually, and this is not to crap on you. That's actually my least favorite class. No, only because barbarians are like, okay, I'm picturing them. They have no shields, no protection. Their only thing is to get in there and do a crap ton of damage, which if they can, they will. But like, I feel like they have nothing to mitigate that. And because they're melee, they can't like kite at range. You know what I mean? Unless this barbarian can.
I think. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, because that's the thing with I think in a lot of RPGs, you're right. They're just sort of thrown in there, and typically they'll give it like some sort of mechanic where they'll like steal life or just some way to sort of sustain all the damage they're taking.
Right.
With barbarians, it's more about having like the most ridiculous amount of health to start out with. So they
Okay.
I don't want to go too nerdy on this, but every
Right.
class is a hit dice. Like a wizard is a D6, so they have a very small amount of health.
Okay.
A barbarian is a D12, literally double that. The highest hit dice
Wow.
out of
Okay.
the entire game.
Okay.
So by the time you hit like level 10, I mean, you have like 3 times the health of your party members.
He's a meat
So you
shield then.
Yeah, he's just a big wall of meat that basically also does a ton of damage.
Stitches.
Don't
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
And then you have the rage mechanic on top of that, where they're taking half damage most of the time.
Wow. Okay.
So they just are like, it's hard to wear one down once they get a few levels in them.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's cool, actually. At first I was like, but now you're selling it. So okay.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid, right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
I don't know if I mean, it's like a hybrid tank damage, sir.
Yeah. It reminds me. A barbarian reminds me of Tryndamere from League of Legends.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny because this isn't a barbarian thing, but half-orcs actually get a racial ability that when they would take fatal damage, they instead go to 1 hit point. So it's sort of like a like Tryndamere's,
Last
never die
stand
sort of thing.
kind of. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's kind of neat.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Okay. Anywho, my number 4 is going to be the Paladin. I think, again, from a fantasy perspective, it's just such a cool class. I mean, it's like you're this divine warrior. You have this oath that you're sworn to uphold.
Mm-hmm.
You could fill many shoes. You know what I mean? You could be a big melee damage dealer. You could be a tank.
Mm-hmm.
You have healing, which is great.
Yeah.
And then they also have some of the craziest burst in D&D as well with this thing that is called Divine Smite.
Okay.
Particularly if you're fighting against undead, it does insane damage.
Awesome. Okay.
So they have a lot of auras, just like sort of like in World of Warcraft and probably other fantasy games as well, where they give bonuses to allies that are close by around them. Just so much going on with the Paladin, and as like a role play sort of thing, just so cool. So love Paladins.
Cool. Okay. Neat.
My number 3 is going to be Cleric. They are kind of like, I think it's like one of the first classes ever introduced with D&D in like first edition or whatever they call it. I'm really not a D&D historian. But typically they are the like, people think of them as the healers, but the thing is that there's so much more to them than that. Like every class sort of has like subclasses. You guys are like Idly, you took Xana. She's a bard and she just joined the College of Eloquence. So everybody sort of has this subclass once you get to a certain level in your class. With clerics, the amount of subclasses that there are actually insane. Like there could be 2 clerics standing right next to each other, and they might play totally different. You wouldn't even know if they're the same class.
Really?
Like there's like sneaky clerics, and there's casty clerics, melee clerics. Like they're just all over the place, and a lot of them are like very well fleshed out subclasses. So
neat.
Really cool class.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, number 2 for me is going to be the Wizard.
Okay.
Which is just one of the more iconic classes. The thing about the Wizard is, like all spellcasters at low levels, they're a little bit weak. They're very squishy. But once you get a few levels into a Wizard, they become like a magical Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
They have the biggest spell list in the entire game, which means that they have the highest potential for having the most spells available to them at a given time. And if you are in a pinch, if you got a wizard with you, he probably has something that he can do to help you out. It's actually incredible the amount of spells that they have access to.
Cool.
Love wizards.
Cool. Nice.
And not to be a broken record here.
Nope.
But my number 1 is also Bard.
Really?
I love Bards. Now,
is that because of their utility, or?
It is. So, I mean, you guys on a personal level know me. When I play RPGs or MOBAs, sorry. Yeah. I like to play the support. I like to play the CC'er. It's just like the enchanter, that kind of stuff. Gotcha. And Bards do pretty much all of that stuff. So their spell list has a great amount of CC in it. If you need an enemy that's just, as you guys have seen from our campaign, just sitting on the ground laughing like an idiot for the entire combat while you kill all of his allies, Bards do that. the inspiration mechanic where you can make your allies more likely to hit or pass their saves or ability checks. Very cool. And the thing that's also very cool about bards is they actually can steal other spells from other class lists. So if there's not something on your class list that you want, like fireball, you could grab it from a wizard and that's your spell now. It's very cool.
Really? Wow.
At a certain level.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, the other thing, as Idly has shown herself, is since they're a charisma-based class, they can get away with a lot because deception, persuasion, intimidation, all of that stuff comes very handy in role-play scenarios and non-combat scenarios.
Her rolls have been ridiculous. I'm just saying, like,
it's insane. I'm actually, what I was doing before you guys asked me to come on here right now was I was turning that. What's his name? Aaron Paul, I think, from Breaking Bad. Keep getting it. I'm turning that into an audio file so I could play that through Roll20.
Very awesome. Beautiful. That is... Because when she was in that one cave, you said like 4 or 5 different goblins took shots at her. And she was like Yoda from Attack of the Clones, just bouncing off walls and dodging everything. Yeah.
She walks around with a cane most of the time. All of a sudden, it's like when push comes to shove, she's hard to kill, and she's very tricky. And I like the way that you use a lot of your minor illusion type stuff. It's very creative. That's the thing that I like about spellcasters in general, is that if you have a creative mind, you could sort of do a lot more with it than you would think. You can get away with a lot with spells.
Sometimes I want to do so much that I feel like I have to instant message, like direct message you and ask first before I reveal it to the party. Eventually I'm going to have to.
Why? Because it's so out there that no one else would believe it?
Kind of.
I get it.
Kind of.
my philosophy is if it doesn't hurt the party, then you're free to do it. I mean, if you're not actively trying to, screw over the party.
I'm not trying to screw them over purposefully. That's my thing.
I see.
Accidentally, I don't know, maybe I might.
You and like the dogs, for example. You wanted to release those dangerous dogs. I was like, no. Everyone was like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And you're insistent on releasing those dogs.
I figured they could have helped. I think our Tabitha, our Tabaxi, I keep saying Tabitha.
Wow, she is going to slap you.
You better hope she doesn't watch this.
You can cut that part out.
Every single time you call her the wrong name.
I can't. It's a tab. It's a tabby.
Uh-huh.
So I do have a question though, real quick.
Yeah.
What is the difference? Like, what is the major difference between a sorcerer and a wizard?
Okay, so here's the main thing is, well, first of all, we'll take it down to basics. Wizards are based off of intellect. So a lot of people think that this is a bad thing because generally speaking, intellect is, you use it for like history checks and arcana, stuff that wizards should be good at. So it makes sense thematically. Mm-hmm. But like in combat, there's not much use for intellect. In social situations, there's typically not much use for intellect, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Where a sorcerer is charisma based, and as you know, charisma is very powerful in conversation. So a lot of people, right off the bat, will say, "Well, I like charisma based classes better. I'm going to play a sorcerer." It goes much further than that. So I'm not going to try to drone on for 2 hours. I'll try to keep it short.
No, it's okay. No worries. Well, we'll get to each class. Trust me. So no worries. We're going to go to each class, and we'll delve into that. No worries.
So as a sorcerer, you have a much more limited spell list. Well, not much more. You have a more limited spell list than a wizard does, which means that when you choose to get a new spell when you level up, there's more spells that wizards have access to than sorcerers. So that's another difference. And the other thing is wizards have this ability to... So sorcerers, if you want to go from the RP perspective, are kind of innately magical, and they can sort of manipulate this magic that they have innately in them. Where wizard has to study and learn magic. So they aren't magical by nature. What this also means, though, is that wizards carry around a spell book. So they have these spells written down, and when they want to cast a spell, they prepare it by going into their spell book. What they can do is if they find a spell scroll somewhere in the world, like as a dungeon drop or whatever you want to call it, they can copy that into their spell book for a price, and now they have access to the spell permanently. So it becomes this thing where if you can find spells out in the world, your spell book becomes filled with these spells. And that's why I was kind of trying to say that they're kind of like Swiss Army knife, because they have access to so many spells. It's crazy.
And sorcerers can't do that. They can only learn what they're born with.
They can only learn what they're born with, and when they level up, they get to choose like a spell or two, depending on what the level is.
I was just about to mention that. It seems like the only way in this game to really get new skills or spells or cantrips is to level up. But if this wizard can learn that via drops in the environment, like that makes him a lot more useful. That's
Absolutely. Sorry, right? And that's going back, and we're interweaving everything now. But going back to that Agatha quest that you guys were talking about before, you have this cleric who's interested in a spell book that has been lost to the ages, and that's because in this universe, spell books are super powerful because people can learn spells from them and study it and be able to cast them themselves. So it's like very cool. I will say the other thing that and this is the last thing I promise. About sorcerers is they have their class-defining thing sort of is called Metamagic, where they get a thing called sorcery points. It's just another resource that they have to sort of deal with. But they can do cool stuff with that. Like Kane just got this at 3rd level, so you guys are going to see him use this soon, I'm sure.
Okay.
But you can increase the range of your spells. You can cast 2 spells at once. You can make what would normally be an action into a bonus action when you're casting a spell. A lot of cool stuff they can do. So don't just think that wizards are better. They're just different.
Okay.
I see.
Makes sense. All right.
The quote, "You're a wizard, Harry," makes so much sense now.
That's why they went to wizarding school, because they had to learn.
Exactly.
Although technically in Harry Potter, I think it's innately in them as well. There's just muggles who are just... we won't get into that.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
That one I would suck at. I only watched Harry Potter, I think, once or twice. Isn't there like 8 movies or something?
I have no idea. I'm not a Harry Potter fan either.
If you want to know the truth too, I got lost at which movie I ended up on, and I've been too scared to go into the next one, so I haven't seen all of them either.
I remember the chess scene only because I like chess. That's the only thing that I remember, but it really wasn't a chess scene. So I guess my top 5 real quick. I like the mage class is my number 5, just because I like spellcasting. And I guess that would equate to a wizard in D&D of some kind. The paladin is my number 4. I love a hybrid tank heal. Like the paladin won't do either very well, but he can do both. So he could be a tank or a heal or as needed. So I kind of like that utility. And like Nick was saying about the auras, like any sort of like party buff is kind of cool. The druid, I like, again, it's another utility class where in World of Warcraft you can be a bear for tank, a cat for a rogue, or a treant for healer. And I love the idea of being able to, again, to steal off of Nick a Swiss Army knife, someone that can do almost everything that needs to be done. They don't do them very well, but they can adapt as needed. My number 2 is a Warlock Necromancer class. I've always liked classes, like in World of Warcraft, the Warlock does a lot of dot damage, which is damage over time. I love set it and forget it damage spells where I can cast something on someone, run away, and then while I'm out of range, this damage just keeps ticking on that enemy until they're dead. Like, I like stuff like that. Or I can, if I'm fighting 4, I can damage, dot, and then run. And then as I'm running from these 4 enemies, they drop dead. So I like that. And I also like a necromancer just raising an army of skeletons or something. That's always fun. And then lastly, the ranger, which is what I chose for our D&D session, just because I like animal companions. I was a hunter in World of Warcraft, and I liked going around the world trying to tame. I had a wolf, I had a cat, I had all sorts of different creatures as my animal companion. And I can't wait to see what kind of animals I can tame in this one, too, in Dungeons & Dragons. So that should be pretty fun. So I guess we'll talk about each of the classes. I know we talked about some of them already. I guess we'll start in alphabetical order. The barbarian is one of them, and as Nick had mentioned, he's got this huge health pool at some point. Let me click on him real quick. Is there anything about a barbarian that we haven't mentioned already that makes them stand out?
I do have a question about them, actually.
Go for it.
So, are they kind of like bruisers at all?
I would say, yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it, actually. I mean, again, once they get into higher levels, they become so tanky that it's going to be tough to kill them. But yeah, I mean, they go in, they expect to take damage, they're going to deal damage at the same time. Yeah.
Do they have any party buff? Like, do they, when they shout, for example, do they, because the warrior in World of Warcraft can do a shout, and that gives, like, everyone a 2-minute bonus or something. Is there anything like that here with the barbarian?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Honestly.
Gotcha.
I could be wrong, and there's probably somebody out there that's screaming in agony that I didn't remember.
Oh, yeah. How dare you?
But I can't think of it. If they do, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess barbarians in general are very selfish. Like, all their spells apply to them. But I ask that because I'm not a fan of paladins at all.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. I don't like playing a tanky class. I find it to be so boring. Like, so painfully boring. Even etc. The what's ETC from World of Warcraft?
Elite Tauren Chieftain, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't like playing him. He's fun, like, in a way, with his CC sometimes, but he's so tanky. He's so boring. He doesn't do a lot of damage. I think that's why I'd rather be a bruiser, sacrificing some of that tankiness for a little bit more damage. I like to, punch people in the face, I guess. Okay, sorry, that's what I wanted to say.
That's cool. Can barbarians wield a shield, or no?
Yes. Okay. Actually, and I was going to just talk about this too, because this is sort of interesting too. So most classes, unless you're wearing like heavy armor, where it's just based off of the armor that the armor gives you, every class can increase their armor by having a higher dexterity. So like a rogue who is in leather might actually be quite hard to hit because his dexterity is so high. With barbarians, it's your dexterity and your constitution. So that's kind of how they get away without having armor and running in, like you think like Conan the Barbarian, like just no shirt, just running in like a madman.
Right.
They're actually still quite hard to hit because they can add their constitution modifier to their armor, not just their dexterity. And then they can use a shield as well and still be okay.
Okay, that's interesting.
So all these naked women, half naked women have a lot of dexterity and constitution, like in all these video games and stuff. Is that what it is? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think every woman portrayed in a video game is a barbarian, but it might be onto something. Maybe I don't know.
That is a weird thing in RPGs. Like,
oh god, yeah.
It's like the higher the level they get, and the stronger the armor piece, the less of it there is physically. Yeah, right.
It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah. Clearly, the target audience is teenage boys, but
no, clearly they have a lot of dexterity and constitution.
Right. Right.
That's why they need to be wearing an armored bra and nothing else.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Gosh.
So their armor, they don't wear plate? Like when I picture barbarian, maybe I'm thinking of like a warrior. So barbarians don't wear plate. They wear like leather, or what do they wear?
So they can wear armor, but they and I don't think they can use heavy armor. I could be wrong. Okay. I'm pretty sure they can only wear like medium armor, like the leather and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But they have this thing at either level 1 or level 2. I think it's actually level 1, called unarmored defense, and that's where you can add your constitution modifier as well as your dexterity modifier. But it also stipulates that if you wear armor, you no longer get the bonus from your constitution. It's sort of.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's just sort of like a. If you want to not wear armor, you can go that route. If you want to wear armor, you can go that route.
Cool.
It's just an option.
Unarmored defense. While you're not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit.
Exactly.
Cool. But typically, I guess barbarians have a two-hander weapon? Is that...
I think a lot do. I mean, not specifically. We had one in a campaign that I was running, and he chose to dual wield, one in each hand. But he still wasn't wearing a shield. But he was still pretty tanky, so it's not like a shield is great. 2 armor is huge. Anybody will tell you that. But it's not necessary. You can play however you want to play.
That's interesting. Okay. Is there anything else to talk about with the barbarian? I'm just looking real quick at the wiki here. There's stuff called like Feral Instinct and Primal Path and Relentless Rage and all this other stuff. Any abilities here that really stand out? Brutal Critical.
Brutal Critical is cool, especially I think half orcs again get something very similar as a racial, where if you crit, you get to add another damage dice to it or something like that.
Holy
so
cow.
if you have a barbarian who's also a half orc who crits like one shots a dragon. Like they do so much damage.
No kidding. Oh, we need one of those then.
Maybe I'm exaggerating, but still, it's a lot of damage.
So the best race for a barbarian is a orc or a half orc, right?
That is a touchy subject. So if you want the most optimized, probably. I mean, as a half orc, I think you get +2 strength, +1 constitution. So that's right down the list for great things for barbarian, and pretty much everything else sort of mixes in well with the barbarian class that a half orc would give you. But most people will probably say there's no such thing as a best combination. It's just whatever you want to play.
I see.
That's sort of the safe answer.
Neat. No, that's cool. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the next one here. Let's go back. If this thing... Okay, the Bard, everyone's favorite. So, the Bard, hit die, D8, primary ability, charisma, and saves are dexterity and charisma. So, we kind of know from what we've already talked about that the Bard is pretty darn versatile. Especially, like, I'm from what we've seen in our current run, it seems like the Bard has a lot of debuffs. Like, that Vicious Mockery, for example, has the ability to debuff the enemy to where they always roll disadvantage. Like, I think that's huge. And you can not stun lock per se, but you can consistently, if you land it, just keep weakening an enemy every turn. Like, that's pretty darn good.
I mean, I always said that Vicious Mockery is the most powerful cantrip in the game. I know that there are people out there who are saying Eldritch Blast because that is like one of the best cantrips in the game, absolutely, and a lot of Warlocks build specifically around that. But I think I agree with you, Vince, where you say that the debuff is huge, disadvantage is massive, especially when you have a frontliner like you guys have in your group, where I already got to hit like an 18 AC or higher, so now I got to roll 2 dice and take the lower. Like I'm never going to hit that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it runs out of a little bit of steam when you start fighting creatures that have multi-attack, because then it's just the next attack after the Vicious Mockery. It doesn't last for the entire turn.
I see.
But still insanely powerful. Pretty much turning a hit into a miss, even if it's one of 2 or 3 attacks, is game-changing.
What's this Eldritch Blast that you're talking about? Is that a high-level skill, or...?
No, it's a cantrip. It's a cantrip for Warlocks.
But Bards can take it, though.
What's that?
Can Bards take it? You said they can borrow from anyone, right?
That's for spells, not for cantrips. There is a distinction there.
Okay.
There is a way, I think there's a feat called like Magic Initiate where it lets you take a cantrip from a different class, but we're not going to get to... The reason that it's so good for Warlocks is because they have these things called invocations, which it's like a whole other thing that we don't need to explain. Maybe when we get to Warlocks, we'll get into that.
Okay.
And actually, we could save this whole conversation for
that's fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
I do have a question. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sorry, I'm like full of it today. So, are bards primarily for crowd control, or are they primarily for supporting the heroes?
Yes. No. So the thing is that the great thing with bards is you really can. They're very customizable in that way. I mean, there's even a college like you remember you took eloquence, called the College of Swords, where they become a frontliner, where they can go up there with a sword and they just start hacking away like they were a fighter or a barbarian, whatever. So there's a lot of different ways to play them. I like playing them as a enchanter / debuffer sort of thing. But that's the great thing with stealing spells from other class lists as well, is you can now take Fireball and all of a sudden you're a very powerful damage dealer. You know, it's very cool what you can do with bards, in my opinion.
Wow. I'm just comic relief bard, I guess.
You also have something called Song of Rest, apparently. At level 2, you get to play soothing music to revitalize wounded allies during a short rest. I had no idea that you could do that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So anytime somebody spends a hit dice, you can play them a little song and they get healed for even more. It's actually really, really good. I like that.
Cool. Anything else about bards that stand out?
I will say this is first of all, I should have made this disclaimer right at the start, but this is all opinion. We're not saying that factually Bard is the best class.
Mm-hmm.
My first character that I played was a Bard, so they hold a very special place for me because of that. And that's a big part of the reason why I love them so much. But I'm not saying that they're the best class and there's like a gap like this between them and the next one.
I am. No, I'm just kidding.
I just personally love them.
I'm just kidding, D&D folks. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. You're going to have, like, angry comments up.
Oh, this will be all over Reddit. You watch.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right, so let's go back then. All right, the Cleric. As you mentioned, the Cleric has a lot of... I was surprised to hear you say that the Cleric has a lot of different ways that you could play it. When I think Cleric, I just think healer. But I didn't realize the Cleric could also be a frontline fighter if they wanted to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The first game that I ever played in, I had a Cleric, and he was a war domain Cleric, which means he was like the frontliner type. Mm-hmm. And he was awesome. I mean, he gave buffs to his allies where if we think that attack's not going to hit, all of a sudden it gets buffed by a +10, and it's like a guaranteed hit, basically. And they're still tanky. They got their mail, they got their shield.
They wear mail. I think when I think healer, I think cloth. Yeah, that's interesting.
Some of them, depending on which domain you go for, can wear heavy armor. Some of them can't even wear, or I think all of them can wear medium at least. I could be wrong on that. Please don't get angry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I don't expect you to memorize the entire Dungeons and Dragons handbook just for this podcast. No.
Typically, I will definitely go hard on the classes that my players are playing. So I don't know everything, but I try to know at least the characters that I'm dealing with. So
cool. Now,
forgive me for my inadequacies.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Now, are they also ones that would be able to cast like protective bubbles or like? Let's say, like, the priest in World of Warcraft has, like, this divine shield bubble thing that they can cast on either themselves or someone else to protect them. Can these clerics do something like that, too, or is that more of a wizard thing?
No, actually, surprisingly, wizards don't have that many abilities like that. So in D&D, the shield that you're thinking of is called temporary hit points. Okay. So there are classes that have access to spells that will grant allies temporary hit points. There's a few other ways you can have access to giving people temporary hit points. But generally speaking, and I think this is actually an important distinction to make for D&D, is because every spell it requires a spell slot, right? So there's no class that can infinitely cast a healing spell. There's no healing spells that are cantrips. So you always have to use a spell slot, and this means that it's very difficult to be a dedicated healer in D&D. Okay. You're going to run out of spell slots eventually, so preventing damage is always more valuable than healing damage. So there's a lot of defensive spells that sort of help people avoid damage or that sort of thing. But if you're going into D&D with the thought of I'm going to be a healer, every time somebody gets a scratch, I'm going to heal that right up, you're going to have a bad time.
I imagine it's for balance issues. Just, I imagine at level 15 or I don't know what the highest max level is, but I imagine 20, at a higher 20. Okay, I imagine at a higher level, a healer like that would be so powerful that no party could be wiped. Just unless they're fighting a green dragon or something. So I can understand. I can understand. I can only imagine what else is out there that we haven't seen yet. We just Cthulhu. Yes.
Yeah, there's I think I could be wrong, but I think the most powerful or the biggest monster, I guess I should say, is called a Tarrasque in D&D, which is like bigger than a city. So
wow, you just answered number 11 on my surprise quiz coming up. No, you're fine. Wow. You're fine. No, spoiler alert. We'll just pretend like we didn't hear that answer. No, you're fine. That's awesome. I gotta wonder. There's gonna be 2 questions on this quiz by the time we're done with this.
The problem is that once you get me talking about D&D, I literally can't shut up. So
that's perfect for this podcast.
Keep going. Yeah.
That's perfect, though. That's what we need. Someone that knows their stuff and is so passionate about it. Channel divinity. Now, what is that? Is that just it's some kind of like you can channel effects that give buffs or something? Or I'm looking at his list. It says at second level you gain the...
all clerics have channel divinity. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it just says you gain the ability to channel divine energy directly from your deity using the energy to fuel magical effects. You start with 2 such effects, turn undead, an effect determined by your domain. Some domains grant you additional effects as you advance in levels. So I'm guessing clerics seem to be very anti-undead. Like they are great
Clerics
against
and
them?
paladins.
Okay.
Yeah. Clerics and paladins are super strong against undead. Like I said, a paladin fighting an undead creature is gonna like do like
bonus
100 damage around. It's like insane the amount of damage that they can pull off with their smites because it does double damage against undead. Clerics turn undead is just sort of like a fear, where they just sort of have to run away, which is still very good. It's a very strong CC against undead. But the thing that's cool about Channel Divinity is, as it said in the description, you also get one that's based off of your domain. So if you are a trickery cleric, which is like it's like a rogue cleric almost, kind of what you were talking about with your witch hunter. I think when they channel Divinity, it gives like their whole party like a +10 to stealth or something like that. So if you guys need to sneak around as a group, you become much better at that. Others are much more like combat focused, but there's a lot of, I mean, I don't even know what some of them are. There's so many of them because for each domain there's a channel Divinity attached to it that does something unique.
There is this raise dead spell that they have, or ability, something. Can they bring back a party member back from the dead, or is this only for like NPC characters?
No. So there are a few spells in the game that will revive a dead character. I think a lot of them, unless you get to like the super high levels, I believe, have like sort of a time limit. Like the person must have died within X days or hours or whatever it might be. So you can't just, resurrect a skeleton that you find in the ground somewhere.
Gotcha.
But yes, there is ways to revive dead players and NPCs if you wanted to.
The target takes a -4 penalty to all attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks every time the target finishes a long rest. The penalty is reduced by 1 until it disappears. So coming back from the dead, you're going to be at a disadvantage for a while. It looks like.
It's there's got to be something a little bit traumatic about that, I would imagine. It's
have
an effect on you.
The zombie brain.
Cool.
Yeah, a worm wiggles out of your ear.
Wrath of Khan all over again. All right. Druids. Priest of the Old Faith, wielding the powers of nature and adopting animal forms. Primary ability, Wisdom. Hit die D8. Saves Intelligence and Wisdom. So again, when I think Druid, I think World of Warcraft. Shapeshifter can do multiple things. Do they have as much utility in D&D as they do in Warcraft, or are they more a focused class to do something specific?
Not necessarily. I would say that a lot of people would pick the Druid to go for the wild shapes, the shapeshifting.
Okay.
Because it is such a unique thing in D&D. So the way that it works is basically as long as your DM rules that it is reasonable that you would know that this creature exists in the first place, like you maybe, if you've lived in, the countryside all your life, you probably wouldn't know what a dinosaur is and be able to transform into it, right? So the idea is that it's supposed to be something that you're at least familiar with before you can transform into it. But the thing that's very cool about it is, and this is I actually realized this when I was saying that I had to talk to the part that our Druid.
I was just about to say that. I'm like, Kira, you could have flown over Cragmaw Castle and got a head count or something.
She could have turned into a bird and flown over it. She could have turned into a mouse and gone into it.
That's awesome.
And I mean, they're great for scouting for that reason alone. And then on top of that, they become like actually good tanks because of this. Because let's say, like World of Warcraft, you transform into a bear, which has a pretty good amount of hit points. The thing about Druid's wild shapes is that when they're in that form, their health becomes that of what a bear would be for this example.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say they have, I'm just making up a number, like 40 hit points, right? And then they're in the front line, they're taking the damage, and they take a total of 36 points of damage, right, in their bear form, and then they take one more attack that does 8 points of damage. Well, when they get to that threshold, 40 hit points, they transform back into normal form. But all that damage that they took as a bear goes away as if it never even happened. They're still at full health.
That is
as
so
a human
good.
being.
That is really
it's insanely strong. So in that situation where they took 8 damage and they only had 4 health as a bear left, they still take that extra 4 damage that spills over into their health pool. But still, they just tank 40 hit points of damage for free.
That's like the Enterprise shields. Like, they're absorbing all this damage, and then whatever's left over goes through. Like, that is really cool.
So you can be
then,
like a giant tortoise or a rhinoceros.
right.
That's my next question. What are the limits? I mean, what's to stop her from transforming into a green dragon every time?
Okay, so that is a fair question, actually. So the way that it's restricted is because every creature in D&D has something called a CR, which is, I think it's a combat rating or something like that.
Okay.
Where it basically tells you they should be approximately this hard and they should award approximately this much XP. That's the long and short of it. So
Okay.
as a druid, I think at level 2, when you first get wild shapes, you can only turn into like a 1/4 CR creature, which is like, you know, like maybe like a wolf or
makes sense.
You know, something that's not terribly overpowered. And then as you gain levels, there's a table in the book that sort of shows you at this level you can turn into this high of a CR of a creature, and you can also now use things that can swim or fly. So actually at level 2 she might not have been able to fly anyway, so we maybe can't get too upset about her not flying over Cragmaw Castle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so basically it is balanced to where she's not going to turn into a dragon and, you know,
decimate everything. I'll just stand behind her the entire
right.
From here on out, I'll just stand behind her. Let her do the work.
With that being said, it's just like spell casting, where if you're creative, you can do a lot of stuff with wild shape that can help out the party.
Cool.
But shape shifting is a dice check, right? Like if you roll low, you can only like turn into a mouse or something. Is it not?
No,
or did I get that
not
wrong?
at all. Not
Really?
at all.
So you can just say that you're going to shapeshift and you do it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say the druid in our party wanted to turn into a wolf. She would just say, "Okay, I'm going to use my action to turn into a wolf." Now that's the cost. Is that with the first turn that when you turn into a creature, it costs your action. So you can't turn into a wolf and then attack. You got to wait till your next turn.
Oh, okay.
There is sort of like a subclass that lets them do it as a bonus action so that they can attack. Blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a cost associated as far as action economy for turning into a different animal.
I see.
Wild shaping.
Interesting.
I kind of like the whole like dice check aspect though. Like if you roll between a 1 and a 3, then you're a small mouse. If you roll higher than that, then you can be a shark or something. I don't know.
You're getting into homebrew territory now, which starts going a little off the rails. Like if you roll a natural 20, now you're that green dragon.
Yeah, right.
You're the monster that's like bigger than the city, whatever it's called.
Yeah, the terrestrial.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Oh, the other thing I want to mention, this is probably common, knowledge, but I will just mention too that when a druid turns into another creature, they still retain, they can't communicate, but they still retain their personality and all their alignment and all that stuff. So it's not like they turn into a wild feral player in the middle of the party. They'll still know that you're their allies, and it's a really cool system.
All right. Nice. So no feral.
Yeah. No dangerous, let's say.
Right. All right, let's see. All right, so I guess next up we have the fighter, and I'm going to assume the fighter is a bit more armor compared to the barbarian. The fighter relies more on armor, or is better at weapons, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I think the distinction they try to go for there is the barbarian is mostly just about like emotion and rage and just letting your instincts take over, whereas a fighter is more reserved. They study the art of fighting, so it's somebody who's trained with a weapon, trained to use the armor.
Okay.
And they, as you'll see, I think we have 2 fighters in our party, a ranged one and a melee one, and they are when we play the next session and they've leveled up to level 3, I think you're going to start to see how that has a little bit more flavor from a class perspective.
Who's the third? Who's the melee? I know Brian is the melee one, but who is Tabaxi?
Kara.
Oh, Kara, the druid?
I think
No.
Isn't she a fighter?
No, she's the druid.
She's the druid. Who's the other fighter? Is that Lily?
Yes.
As a cat, she's always using her short or her bow though. So I thought she was
using
ranged.
a longbow.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
So as a fighter, you can choose to go for a melee base and sort of pump your strength and be very good in the melee, or you can go for your dex, put a bow on, and you're just as good as a ranger or a rogue or anything that wants to use.
That's interesting. Like, because that was my next question. Like, is there something that like a ranger? When I think ranger, I think long range bows. Like, do they have some kind of bonus to range that the fighter doesn't, or vice versa?
Nah, not really.
Oh,
Not really. Because you remember when I think even in the first session,
she was
fighters
doing
get
great.
that +2 to the attack roll.
Right, archer.
You remember that?
Right.
Like almost straight. I think they get that at level 1, whereas the ranger, you picked that up at level 2.
Right.
It's the same thing. Now you guys have the same +2 bonus that you guys have. It's just that you guys got it at different levels. But,
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, they can be just as good as anybody else with the bow. Absolutely.
Okay. Neat. Do they have any standout abilities that make them really good, or are they just like an all-around versatile just fighter? Like, is it just there's a second win ability I'm looking at here.
The second one is great, so you could heal yourself during combat, which is excellent.
Okay.
Just like I got done telling you, healing in D&D is very scarce. So when you can get it from something that your class can do, that always feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest thing I would say for fighters, I'll say 2 things, and I promise I won't drone on forever.
You're fine.
Is they get something called Action Surge, and Lily I think just got this at level, it's either 2 or 3, I can't remember. It must be 2 actually.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is once per long or short rest, she can say, okay, I'm going to action surge now. So she shoots her bow, and she says, I want to action surge, and she gets to shoot her bow again. You get another action. You could do 2 actions in your turn as a fighter when you use this action surge.
Wow.
So it's extremely powerful, especially when you start getting into multi-attack territory. I think at level 5, you and her will probably start getting your multi-attacks.
Okay.
So if she chooses to, she's going to fire twice because of her multi-attack. Then she's going to do an action surge and then fire 2 more shots.
Holy!
So it scales incredibly nicely as a fighter.
Okay, that would these skills are going to make a huge difference. Like I'm thinking about our first encounter in Phandelver with the whole cart and the goblins and everything else. Having the ability to shoot 3 times in one go as opposed to just once would have, like, I don't know. I felt like a stormtrooper that first battle because I wasn't hitting anything. The goblins could have been the broadside of a barn and I still wouldn't hit it.
Listen, man, I'm telling you, you could be level 1, you could be level 20. Sometimes the dice just curse you, and sometimes they bless you. You know, it's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
It seems like the game, I don't know. It seems like the game penalizes you a lot at the early level, and then like it seems like the rush to get to level 2 is the first thing you need to get to do. Like you need to get to level 2 as quickly as possible because then you start unlocking all these cool things. Like that seems to be the going thing with this game. But
I think for me personally, as a DM, I think in a perfect world, I would probably start every campaign at level 3 because that's when classes start to get interesting in their own right, where you start to get your subclasses. Mm-hmm. You have a few things you can do besides just I draw and shoot my bow. Okay, turn over. You get to do a little bit more than that. The only reason that I didn't do it is because we had a lot of new people.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Getting your character to figure out what it does at level 1 can be pretty confusing, especially depending on the class. So sometimes it's nice to sort of like build up to that kind of stuff too, right? So you can get used to using the stuff.
It's the same reason why MMOs only give you 1 or 2 abilities when you're level 1. Like when I logged into WoW, returning, like it's been 3 or 4 years since I've played WoW, 5 years even. I logged back in and I had a hotbar on my level 60 or whatever. I'm like, what is all this stuff? So I was completely overwhelmed. I was half tempted to start back at level 1 again, so I could get used to all the spells again. So I totally understand your point. So that's
and I agree with you. If there's some major patch in WoW and they change around skills, it's like you got to sit there and read for like a day before you can even play your character again. Because you're like, what does this thing do now? It's totally different.
Mm-hmm. I logged in that one time and they got rid of the talent trees, and now it's just you pick one ability every so many levels. They used to have 3 talent trees, and you could pick 50 into this one, 20 into this one, 3, and there was a meta that you would have for each class or whatever, depending on what you wanted. Now it seems to be a lot more simplified.
Yeah, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. I don't want to get into it. That's
no worries.
Subject for me.
I don't want to depress you on my podcast. So
that cut hasn't healed yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Too soon. Yeah, I get it. So I'm guessing the monk then. So if the fighter can do melee and ranged, the monk is more melee focused. Is that right?
Absolutely. There actually, to be fair, is a subclass variant that I think is really cool for the monk, which I think is like some sort of like psionic mind monk where your your melee fists become like 15-foot weapons as they're like projecting through your mind and punching your enemies in the face. It's really cool. It sounds ridiculous, but it's so cool.
They go Super Saiyan, or like, is that?
I mean, that's just baseline. That's just how they normally attack. They're like,
wow.
All right, well, I want to attack that guy over there, so I'm going to punch him with my mind.
That is so. They take their brain out of their head. They hit him with it, and then he put it back. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very cool. It really is cool. I think it's really neat.
So they do fast fist stuff. They can they do any spells or like magical stuff too, or how does that work?
So there is this subclass for monks that's called the Way of the Four Elements, I believe, where they can. So the resource for monks is called key points, KI, and generally this is fuels like for a normal, like let's say, baseline monk. This can fuel things like punching multiple times in a single turn. So that's kind of like where you get like your sort of fast with the fist sort of thing.
Okay.
The Way of the Four Winds allows you to spend your key points to basically imitate spells. The problem is that it's so expensive that almost nobody plays it. It's like a really underpowered subclass, from what I understand.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I think there's been people who have sort of like homebrewed fixes to that class, which a lot of people have shown like good receptiveness to. But as written, that subclass I think is very, very underpowered, unfortunately.
That sucks.
But it is possible.
I mean, a monk isn't really necessarily my favorite style of fighting anyway. Like my ranged and kiting, the monk seems to be in your face.
Yeah.
They do have this deflect missiles ability I'm reading. At level 3, you can use your reaction to deflect or catch the missile when you are hit by a ranged attack. When you do so, the damage you take from the attack is reduced by 1d10 plus your dexterity plus your monk level. So that it seems like they have the ability to either reduce damage or negate it. But I'm guessing you have to spend this key point as well? Or
I think it's actually just your reaction. I could be wrong. I think it's just your reaction to do that. And I think that is such a cool... let me tell you, too. I'm going to stop nerding out in a second.
Please nerd out. I like it.
I always tell myself that the next time that I'm in a campaign as a player, I'm going to play a monk, because I think they are so cool, because they get little stuff like that every single level. It's like insane the amount of stuff you pick up as a monk every time you level up. That deflect missile things is so cool. So basically, if something shoots a ranged attack at you, you can roll a d10, add your dexterity to it, and reduce the damage by that amount. But it also says, if you keep reading, that if you reduce it to 0, you actually catch the weapon and you can throw it back at the person that attacked you. And now the arrow that came at you, you hit them with it. It's so cool.
That is cool. Okay, so they're like users of the Force from Star Wars. I guess they can force push
something. Physically catch, like imagine this arrow coming at you and you just catch it and then you just like puck it back at them.
So Matrix. Cool. Okay.
So yeah, exactly.
That's cool. I like that.
A lot of people hate on the monk because it's thematically sort of, people don't think it fits the fantasy scene. And I have to say that I disagree with that. I think it fits just fine, and I think it's a really cool class.
They're ninjas. I think they're ninjas. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not ninjas in medieval times?
Yeah, I say so. I think they're great. And it's funny because one of the subclasses, if I played a monk, I would go for the Way of the Shadow, which basically is a ninja. So they can, if there's darkness over here and there's darkness over here, but there's like let's say like a lantern in between them, they can teleport between the darkness without actually passing through the light. It's so cool.
Interesting.
Whoa, it's creepy.
Very cool. It's very cool. So.
It's creepy.
Can they channel this key ability to also heal, or are they more of a fighter melee thing?
I think they do have something like that where they can heal themselves with their key. Again, don't murder me if I'm wrong here, commenters, but I think there is something like that.
Okay. You don't need food or water past level 15. Timeless body. Interesting.
Yeah, there's one that literally just stops them from aging. Like, they just no longer age anymore. They're just like, no, I'm good with this whole mortality thing. I'll just be immortal from now on.
When I think of monk, I think of charism. I think it is from World of Warcraft. Is that his? Is it? It's gotta be from...
that's
Diablo?
from Diablo, actually.
Diablo, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yes,
you're fine.
Yes.
And he does
Blizzard.
like the whole. He has an ability in Heroes of the Storm where he's like.
Yeah, fast fists.
Like blur fists.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that they would call that in D&D. It's called flurry of blows, basically, where you could spend a key point and do like an extra 2 attacks every time you attack. It adds up. They hit with their fists, which are only like D4 weapon damage, but I mean, you start stacking them on top of each other, and they grow into bigger dice as you get more levels as well. They can become quite powerful. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. You're making me want to play a monk.
I love it, man. I would love to play a monk. Every time I get into a group as a player, though, it's like, well, I think we need some sort of magic caster. I think we need some sort of this. I think, you know what I mean?
You're catering to the group. Yeah.
Make my monk just fit. Yeah, and it's not something you have to do, and I actually advise my players against that because I think it's important to play the class that you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very guilty of that myself. I like to sort of fill in the gaps the party needs.
Cool. Paladins, my favorite, your favorite. Well, not favorite, but one of our favorites. Although Idly hates them. So I know they can tank, they can heal. Do they favor one or the other in D&D, or can they do either equally as good or bad?
Well, all paladins can heal. So every single paladin has a thing called Lay on Hands, which is like a pool of healing energy, essentially, which is based off their level. I think it's like every level you get 5 points of Lay on Hands pool.
Mm-hmm.
And you can spend this pool to heal people, to cure poisons, to remove diseases. It's actually pretty neat.
Lay on Hands is a World of Warcraft ability. I'm noticing a lot of similar named spells here. Did Warcraft copy off of D&D, or was it vice versa?
I have to say, and maybe I'm wrong, I have to say that they copied off of D&D, because I'm pretty sure D&D was sort of the foundations for RPGs as we know it. It's
right.
Like the granddaddy.
Back in, they were around 60s, 70s? I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, or 80s.
Before my days. But...
Yeah, this is the first time I've played D&D. It was a huge thing back when I was a kid, but I never got into it.
In Heroes of Hammerwatch, the paladin there also has the Lay on Hands spell.
So,
yeah, that's pretty funny.
I think it's just so iconic. I think it's just such an iconic paladin thing that everybody, if you have a paladin in your game, they better have Lay on Hands.
Yeah, otherwise you get kicked out.
Yeah, they're not a paladin otherwise.
Right,
they're right. Like they're just a cleric. Ugh.
That's funny. Most of.
Chainmail and a holy... Okay, I'm just reading their starting equipment. So they typically like the heavy armor, and this holy symbol... does this holy symbol actually do anything?
So, yes, absolutely. So, the way that magic casting works in D&D is... and I think we touched on this last time we were playing in the last session, is you have these verbal, somatic, and material components. So, verbal is... speaking, obviously, you have to do some sort of chant or whatever it would be. Somatic is making gestures with your hands or with your body. And then material would be you either use components. So, like, this is where you get things where, like, I need the eye of a newt to cast this spell sort of thing. But D&D gives you the options to do material components like eyes of newts and anything else you could imagine with using a spellcasting focus. So for paladins, that would be their holy symbol. For like wizards and sorcerers, they have arcane focuses. For the bard, it's actually their instrument.
Oh, cool.
So there's a lot of so basically you're foregoing needing to carry around this pouch of random magical components to cast your spells in favor of having a holy symbol, a arcane focus, this kind of stuff.
Cool. And it looks like they do have an aura.
Spellcasting, long story short.
Oh, no, yeah, awesome. They do have an aura of protection. Whenever you are a friendly creature within 10 feet of you must make a saving throw. The creature gains a bonus to the saving throw equal to your charisma modifier with a minimum bonus of +1. Interesting. So
strong. So strong.
That sounds good. I like auras in general. Like, I love passive things that you can cast on the entire party or whatever. That seems really powerful. No, I'm
sorry, please. I've been talking like an idiot this whole time.
No, you're fine.
You're good.
It's good. You're the reason why you know a lot about this stuff, so this is fascinating to me. I mean, it's not exactly it doesn't sound like Aura of Protection is a party buff, but it can do It seems like you can cast it on anyone. Now, is that like a reaction thing to where even if it's not the paladin's turn, they can interject and cast this aura of protection on someone that's about to take damage, or?
No. So the way this works is this is constantly 100% of the time emanating from the paladin.
Oh.
If you're within, I think, 10 feet or something like that of that paladin, you get that no matter what the situation.
Holy cow. That is really good.
So, and I think down the line they get another one that makes all their allies within a certain radius around them immune to being afraid or charmed or something like that.
Oh,
it's
wow.
Like,
okay.
They are very party focused. They don't have to be. They could be. And that's another thing about paladins too. Actually, I want to touch on really quickly was in previous editions, paladins had to be lawful good, which means that if you're partied up with a rogue and he pickpockets something from somebody and you know about it, it's a problem. In 5th edition, they're a lot more lax with the alignment restrictions. So a paladin doesn't have to be lawful good anymore. You can have a paladin. Generally, they're going to be good because they're based off of their oaths and not so much being attached to a particular god or deity. So I just wanted to mention that they're a little bit more free to, because a lot of people tended to stay away from paladins because, I don't want to be that guy that's kind of the stick in the mud of the party.
Right.
But now you can sort of play them a lot more freely as something else other than the sort of stop what you're doing there, rogue, and give me that back. I need to return it to its rightful owner, sort of thing.
And I think that's also like a DM's prerogative to either focus a lot on like alignments or not. Like I'm noticing in our playthrough, like we really don't focus on the alignments too much. Like I know Kira's good or whatever as a druid, so she's always trying to help people without asking for money. Like I think that's the extent to which like I haven't seen anything else come into play that was alignment based. You know what I mean? Unless I completely missed it. But I mean that's not your failing or anything. I'm just saying like it just seems to be more lax, and I'm actually happy with that because it allows us to be who we want whenever we want, and I think that makes for a better story anyway.
Oh, I like the alignment thing because it kind of keeps you in check, just to make sure it makes sure that you don't kind of cheat or I don't know go against what you first created.
I think there is a flaw with the alignment system in general. I think somebody who's lawful isn't always going to, in my opinion, be like across the board everything. There's got to be wiggle room, right? Like we're all human,
right?
Or if you're in D&D, you might be but you know what I mean. I think the problem with it is that, like for me, I'm not a big fan of the alignment system, so almost all my characters end up being chaotic good, which pretty much means like if I want to help, I will help, and I'll try to help. But if it's like not really in my best interest and whatever, you know what I mean? Which actually maybe that's closer to chaotic neutral, but you know what I mean? It's just like I like to have a little bit more freedom where I could sort of like imagine what my character would actually do rather than be shackled to this, oh no, I'm good, I must help. You know what I mean? It's just I wish that there was a better way to sort of describe it other than having rigid.
I think that limits your story too. Like if you're playing a game like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, and like typically in those games there's a good choice and a bad choice, and if you were told in Mass Effect that you always had to take the good choice or always take the bad choice, like that would limit half the game, I think. So I understand, like I don't like being locked into something like that. So I kind of like the loose way that we're doing it, honestly. So
it's kind of like I don't know. I'm sure you have, but like Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, where you could make evil choices, you could make good choices, and it would have a long-term effect. You remember that had that scale where you were dark side or light
blue
side?
or red. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So, but you didn't have to always pick one or the other, and sometimes you would fluctuate a little bit. And you'd do something a little evil, but then you could do something later to make up for it.
Right.
I think that's a better system in general. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And I do like that if you went dark side, you opened up the force lightning and other things that you couldn't take. That was the best abilities in the game were dark side. Just saying. I know.
You know what? I'm such a coward though. Even today, when I replay that game, I always feel so bad when I go dark side. I'm so sorry, everybody.
I felt even when I tried to be bad in that game, like there was a scene where I was talking to someone. And I had the option to force will them off of like this platform into nothingness. And I did it just to be bad, but I felt so guilty afterwards. I had to reload and not do it. So
It's so bad though, because sometimes you'll do something like that, and you'll get like a chunk of like that much dark side points, and you're like, "Oh, I gotta stick with that. That's too much to give up."
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what game is this? Are you guys talking about?
KOTOR. You see me live stream it a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
You remember the Jedi Star Wars game I was playing? It was an RPG. I was running around everywhere fighting. Do you remember that one?
Kind of vaguely.
Okay.
Was it an MMO?
No, it was just a regular RPG. It was old school.
Old school. Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost turn-based combat sort of thing. It's like you get paused in the middle of combat until your characters do.
Oh.
I love that game.
Yeah, it's good.
KOTOR?
KOTOR, Knights of the Republic.
Oh, okay.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Mm.
And then there was KOTOR 2, which I haven't played in a long time. I want to revisit that too. I
also enjoyed. Yeah, I like both of them. I was so hyped up when they announced the MMO, but I could not get into that game.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're making a third one. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out.
A KOTOR 3?
I thought so. I thought.
Oh.
I was reading that it's being remade. I don't remember who's doing it, but it's. I don't know if they're going to redo the first one or if they're just going to make a whole new story. But
I'd be happy with either at this point.
Yeah, really. All right. I guess we're on the Ranger, and I know this is like we're taking so long to do this, and I apologize.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I feel bad for keeping you around when you probably want to get to bed.
No, I'm the one that's like talking for like half an hour about every class.
No, it's fine.
That's awesome.
We're in the R's now. The Ranger. The Ranger. That's who I am. And my Ranger again is more ranged based, but it looks like my Ranger can also be melee based if they want to. Is that only because I was the soldier, or is a Ranger typically ranged? Is that how they're meant to be?
Either. They're set up so that they can go either direction. It just depends on the player.
Okay. And is there anything about the Ranger that I'm only level 2? Well, about to be 3. Is there something like really good? I don't want you to like spoil too much and lead me into one direction. Like tell me what's overpowered so I can take it, kind of thing. But is there something that stands out to you that you really like about them?
There is a lot of cool stuff, especially. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the monk that we were talking about before. I think the baseline ranger is a little bit underpowered to where people were kind of avoiding playing it, and I think Wizards of the Coast sort of picked up on that, and that's when they sort of revised it a little bit. They sent out a sort of playtest ranger variant that you could, which is what you're using actually.
Okay. For you. With a Natural Explorer, whatever it was called.
Yeah, a lot of more up to like giving you advantage on your initiative rolls, giving you advantage against things that haven't acted in combat yet. Just little stuff, because before that it was like I'm a ranger at level 1. I could like I'm good at tracking stuff, which makes sense. Rangers should be good at tracking stuff,
right.
But
I have no cantrips though at level 1. Like I have no.
Yes.
So like I'm looking at my party members. They're doing all these cantrips, and as a ranger, I was just shooting. Like that's all I could do.
That's actually an interesting point that you bring up too, because there's a lot of sort of these hybrid classes like rangers and paladins that don't get cantrips. They just get a much more delayed spell progression than a full caster would.
Okay.
But it's still pretty cool to have access to both, to be good with a weapon and also being able to do like a spell at the same time. So that is a very cool thing about classes like that, the ranger and the paladin. There is some cool stuff coming for you, and I think when we sit down and level up your character to level 3, we'll take a look at all your little subclass archetypes, and I think you'll see some of the cool options that you're going to have in store for you.
I like this primeval. I was actually looking on my own just to see what I could do. This primeval awareness, beginning at level 3, I can, for 1 minute per level of the spell slot you expend, you can sense whether the following types of creatures are present within 1 mile of you, or within up to 6 miles if you are in your favored terrain. So I can sense aberrations, celestials, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead. The feature does not reveal the creature's location or number, but at least I can sense that they're there, which is kind of cool.
And that I think is actually the base one, because the revised one goes even beyond that. Like it's very cool to where I think it's like if there is a favorite enemy of yours somewhere within like 5 miles of you, you have a general idea of the direction of it and how many there are. Like it becomes extremely powerful, especially if you're hunting your favorite enemy.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
it becomes very useful.
Neat. All right. So, any other things to talk about with the ranger, or do you want to move on to the next one?
One thing, and I promise I'll be quick.
No, you're fine.
I want to say that I think D&D did a great job of capturing what a ranger should be with the tracking and being good. And you could be a melee, you could be a ranged, just like Aragorn, right? Like
right, exactly.
Like, who doesn't think that Aragorn is cool? He's such a great character.
Exactly.
I think they did a great job of capturing what it should be to be a ranger. I think they just sort of missed on actually making you feel as powerful as the other classes, which is why I think it's pretty cool that we can sort of use this revised version to get you there. So I think that the ranger is a great class. I don't want anyone to think that I don't think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it needs a little bit of help in the power department. So you still feel like a ranger, absolutely. You can do all the things rangers could do, but you also are making a difference in combat. You can do some cool stuff out of combat. It's a great class.
As a ranger, I expected for my hit to be better than what it is, like 2 hit. Like as a ranger, like you'd think that the only, like, for when it comes to archery, when I think like Legolas, like he's able to hit all these things, and you know, me as a ranger, I'm like, well, I get +2 to archery, but that's it. I was hoping for something as a ranger to give me more accuracy, you know what I mean, or increase my odds to hit even more than what they already are. Maybe something like that is coming. I don't know.
So I'll touch on that really quickly. So the way that you sort of scale as a character is like there's 2 things that are sort of growing as you level up, and that's the proficiency bonus, which right now for you guys is a +2. I believe at 5 it grows to a +3, so your attacks get an extra attack bonus on top of it. But also when you guys hit 4th level, you'll get something called an ability score improvement, so you can bump your dex up to an 18, which will give you then a +4. So you're going to get these little incremental bonuses as you keep going that are going to make your hit much more
cool,
reliable.
I know I shouldn't be asking for that much at level 2, so I was glad to hear that. I'm glad that there's more stats coming, more stat boosts.
Yeah, you're not going to be sitting there at a +5 for the rest of your of your career.
It's
going to grow.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Rogues. We barely touched on this entire podcast. So rogues, when I think rogue, I think sneak up to someone and backstab them. Is that something that they do in this game too, or what do they do?
Yeah. One of probably the most class-defining things about the rogue is their sneak attack, which is if you have advantage against something, and I've explained advantage to you guys, so you roll 2 dice and you take the higher result. So if they have advantage against something, or if an ally is within 5 feet of the target they're attacking, they basically get these sneak attack dice, which are D6s, and they add that to their damage. So they only use like daggers or maybe like a rapier if they choose to go that route, which are not huge damage weapons. But then if they get their sneak attack, it's like their little D4 dagger just turned into a D4 plus 3d6, 4d6, 5. It depends on the level of the rogue. But you start turning into this damage monster that is scaling like crazy. I mean, forget it. If a rogue crits, it's like they get like 8 sneak attack dice, and it's like you're just going to be one-shotting things.
Wow.
They get very powerful very quickly.
I'm also reading that they get something called Cunning action starting at level 2. Your quick thinking and agility allow you to move and act quickly. You can take a bonus action on each of your turns in combat. This can be used to dash, disengage, or hide. So in theory, they could get in there, do a crit, and then dash away out of danger if they needed to. So they can hit and run, essentially. That seems... At level 2, that's good.
And the disengage, too, because maybe they don't want to double their movement, but they want to just get out of there while they can still do an attack first. So they just attack, say, I'm taking the disengage action as a bonus action, and I'm walking away, and the monster can't do anything to stop them. Very cool. So dash will still trigger the, what is that, the opportunity? Yeah, okay. If they don't disengage, then the dash will still get them an opportunity. Okay, so in theory, going in there, doing damage, you'd want to use the disengage, not the dash, to get away scot-free. Okay, okay. So what does dash do? Is that just gives you more movement than you normally could for your turn? It's like double your movement. Okay. And the thing that's kind of cool about the rogue is, so let's say you're chasing down this guy that just stole the artifact that you guys were hunting or whatever, right? You're chasing down somebody. Okay. A rogue can say, okay, I'm going to move 30 feet, and then I'm going to dash as my bonus action to run another 30 feet, and then I'm going to attack him because I still have my action after doing all that.
Wow.
So they're a very, very mobile class. I mean, opportunity attacks kind of screw that up in combat, but there are situations where that's just an extra. Or they could say, I'm going to move, I'm going to dash as my action, and then I'm going to dash again as my bonus action. So now I'm moving 90 feet in a turn. So they become very, very fast.
Cool. Now, it says here, uncanny dodge. Now, the reactions isn't something that we really haven't gotten into in our playthrough yet. It just says, starting at level 5, when an attacker that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to have the attack's damage against you. Now, do all of us have reactions that we don't know we have, or is it only certain classes that has this reaction ability? Or
So that's where attacks of opportunity come in.
Okay.
So every single class in the game, even if you're a wizard, if something tries to walk away from you, you can try to get an attack of opportunity against it. You have to use your reaction. You only get one reaction per round, not per turn, but per round.
Okay.
So if 2 things move away from you, you can only attack one of them. There are other things you could use reaction on, like for the rogue to do this uncanny dodge, which is insanely strong, actually, being able to have damage.
Okay.
And then for like wizards, there are some reaction types. Well, not just spellcasters. There's reaction type spells, but it's usually a class ability or a spell.
Okay.
Other than opportunity attacks.
Sounds like an Overwatch thing from XCOM.
Oh God, yeah. Or Overwatch from Warhammer too.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh. It's crazy.
I remember my poor Grey Knights getting shot to pieces. Rest in peace.
Anything else about... Now, do they do melee primarily, or do they actually do ranged as well? Like, can they throw their daggers, or can they do anything ranged?
It's one or the other. They can choose. They can choose to. They can use a bow. They're only going to. They don't have martial weapon proficiency, so they're only going to be using a short bow unless they get that from somewhere else, like being like elves all have proficiency with longbows. But again, their base weapon damage is only a very, very small part of their damage, and they can do sneak attacks with the bow and arrow as well.
Okay.
As long as there's an ally within range of the target. So yeah, they can be just as effective at range as they are in melee.
Cool. All right. Anything else about them before we move on?
One quick thing again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another great thing about rogues, and this is actually something that Idly just picked up with her bard as well, is there's something like there's a concept, I guess I should say, as being a skill monkey in D&D, where it's like I just want to be good at doing skill checks, like whether it be picking a lock or talking to the person or knowing a lot about Arcana. So rogues are one of those classes, and bards are 2 of the classes that are extremely good at being skill monkeys because they have something called expertise, which allows them to bonus their proficiency or double their proficiency bonus for doing skill checks. So I think rogues are one of the great classes because of that. They're experts at picking locks, which is very handy for any group. And there's a lot of other stuff they can do cool as well with
neat.
Skill checks.
I assume they also have like vanish abilities, like in World of Warcraft. I think there was like a vanish ability that I could take where I would just disappear and no one could see me, and I was safe for a while, and I could sneak away. Do they have anything like that here? I could actually look.
Probably have something like that.
Okay.
I think as actually vanishing during combat, it's quite difficult because basically you just have to do a hide action, which you can do with your cunning action.
Okay.
But you have to, it depends on the DM. Let's just say that.
Gotcha. All right. So how about the sorcerer? So we kind of talked earlier about the differences between the sorcerer and the wizard. We've also got the warlock to touch on. So it seems like these 3 spellcasters are just different types of spellcasters. And the sorcerer uses charisma, so it seems like the sorcerer is better at talking their way past things than, say, the wizard. Is that fair?
No wonder I like
so.
sorcerer so much.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, it depends on how you roleplay your character. If you don't want to be a very outgoing sorcerer, that's fine. You don't have to take proficiencies in charisma skill checks like persuasion. You can play it however you want. But if you want to be good at talking skill checks, then a sorcerer is a good class to be one of that.
Gotcha. So
to do that,
what are the primary spells that a sorcerer would have? Like when I think wizard, I think fireballs, I think ice bolts. When I think sorcerer, I think like dark magic. Is that something similar here, or are you not as limited to the range of spells?
I would say you're not as limited. I think, like, if you wanted to make a comparison, and maybe this isn't even 100% accurate, but just as a vague idea, as a difference, I would say that wizards have a lot more utility spells.
Okay.
Whereas sorcerers are slightly more focused on damaging spells.
Okay.
I mean, and wizards also have access to most of those damage spells as well. It's just they have the ability to go for the utility spells.
Mm-hmm.
That's not 100% true. Obviously, there are a lot of utility spells that sorcerers have access to. But I think if you're just talking on a general scale, then I would say that sorcerers are slightly more inclined to damage dealing, whereas a wizard might be more inclined to doing the utility type stuff.
Cool. What about them stands out to you, if anything? Do they have any like really good abilities or spells that are unique to them that really add to the party's benefit? Or
okay, again, I have two things, and I'll try to keep
go for it. Go for it.
The first thing that I think is really cool about that sorcerers is that metamagic I was talking about, where you have these sorcery points that you can spend to make your spells have different effects. Maybe it's maximum damage, maybe it's more range. One of them is twinning your spell, which is to say, if I have a concentration spell where I can only cast it on one person, I have to concentrate on that. I can now twin it and have it go on two people. So now I'm not CCing one person, I'm CCing two people.
Wow, that's
or
cool.
Whatever it might be, which is very powerful because typically you can't concentrate on more than one spell, but sorcerers kind of have like a little workaround for that, which is really neat.
Can you chain a multi-attack with that or no? Like, can you there was mention of multi-attack earlier, like when you get to like level 5 or whatever, you can attack twice. Can warlocks like dual attack, like attack 2 targets, then attack 2 targets again, then, you know what I mean, through multi-attacks, or is that not how they work?
The sorcerer, so not exactly. So multi-attack is like mostly a melee or a ranged, physical damage dealer thing, where it says instead of firing one bow, I'm going to fire 2. If instead of attacking once with my sword, I'm going to attack twice. With wizards, it's or spellcasters, I should say. It's more about as they get higher level, they get access to higher level spells, and these higher level spells often have much more devastating effects or powerful buffs or debuffs or what have you. So they don't scale in the same way where I'm going to cast 2 spells now. They more scale in the way of instead of casting this second level spell, which is pretty powerful, I'm going to cast this 6th level spell that's devastating. So,
gotcha. Instead of light cigarette, it's an actual fireball. Got it. Okay.
And the other thing I just want to say about sorcerers is there's a subclass that I always want to try with them, which is called wild magic, which is it's so funny thematically, potentially devastating though, where it's like they have this magic in them and it's like so innate in them that they can't actually control it. So occasionally random stuff will happen around them. Like they might accidentally turn themselves into a potted plant for like 10 minutes. And it's just like something that just randomly happens because this wild magic surge happens. Crazy. Where it's just so funny. It's just so like they might have like their skin might just turn bright blue, like neon blue. And they're like, oh, I meant to do that. Haha. You know, it would just be so much fun to roleplay that, I think. I want to try it so bad. But one of the effects, because they have this table in the book, which it says, roll a D100 and then see what effect happens. One of them is cast a fireball on yourself, which is like a 3rd level spell, and it does like 66 damage. So if you happen to get that at level 1, you have the potential of accidentally murdering you and your entire party instantly.
Wow.
So it's a little bit dangerous. It's slightly dangerous.
Yeah. And I'm just, in my head, I'm still trying to wrap myself around, like, what does a physical D100 look like? Is that even possible?
So the way that they do it in D&D,
they roll 5 of them?
You take 2 D10s. One of them represents the first number, and the second represents the second number. So if you roll a 10 and a 10, that would be 100. If you roll a 9 and a 3, it would be a 93, etc.
I see. Okay, that makes more sense. I'm trying to picture a 100-sided die, and I can't. Like,
oh my god,
the faces would.
It's like you have to have like the magnifying glass.
That's. There's one notch on that. Okay, yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly. Forget it. Absolutely forget it.
Cool. So was that it for the sorcerer, or was there anything else that you could think of that you wanted to contribute?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
I think the sorcerer is a great class.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. And the warlock. Now, again, sorcerer and warlock, I mean, they sound, in my head, they sound similar. Does the warlock raise the dead, whereas the sorcerer doesn't, or what does the warlock do?
No. Interestingly enough, if you want to raise the dead, you actually probably want to be a wizard. They have a school of magic called necromancy.
Weird. That is so weird.
I know. It's very strange, but wizards. I'm sorry, warlocks. So we spoke way before about how a wizard will have to study to learn the magic. The sorcerer is kind of born with it inside of him.
Right.
The warlock makes a deal with an extraplanar entity. So like some dark Cthulhu god that lives on a different plane somehow contacted them, and they came up with this pact that gave the warlock its magical abilities. So from an RP standpoint, it's pretty neat because you kind of have to work with your DM on what kind of relationship you have with this extraplanar entity. But it's actually really just interesting role-play mechanic that I got to do once with one of my players, and it ended up being a lot of fun.
So you have to invent a whole new NPC just for that warlock, just basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's cool.
And it might be that they have a very distant relationship, and you almost never have to do that sort of stuff, or maybe it's the kind of person who, when they fall asleep at night, they see him every night. You know what I mean? In their nightmares or something, or in their dreams.
Yeah. How RPG do you want to get? Yeah, I get it.
Right.
So what kind of spells or abilities that they have? What does the warlock have that makes it stand apart to the wizard or the other one, sorcerer?
The warlock is an interesting one because they have way fewer spell slots than the other classes, than the other pure spellcasters. Way fewer.
Interesting.
But every time they take a short rest, they recharge all their spell slots, whereas all the other classes, it takes a long rest.
Okay.
In a particular fight, somebody like a wizard might get off more spells than a warlock because the warlock will run out of spell slots quicker. But throughout the course of the day, the warlock might end up casting more spells than a wizard ever could because they're just getting more short rests in and they're recharging their spell slots.
I guess that would benefit in longer D&D sessions where people are playing for 6 hours. Typically we play for between 1 and 3 hours. So the amount of times that we've actually short rested in our sessions, we only did that once or twice. Typically we would just long rest. You know what I mean?
Right, which is actually kind of interesting because I think for a lot of parties they sort of struggle with this trying to have to tell your players no when they want to take a short rest, because a lot of groups will sort of be like, all right, well, we just had one fight, let's take a short rest, and then we're going to have another fight and we'll take another short rest, and you kind of have to be like, well, you can't take a short rest after every single fight. So I kind of like that our group is a little bit more not
gung-ho
cheesing the rest of them. But on the other hand, I mean, it's not a bad thing to take a short rest every once in a while too. I mean, it's just I think you guys sort of were in that cave and you asked for a short rest, and I kind of said, well, if you take a short rest, they're probably going to find you. So
right.
I try to keep it a little realistic with that kind of stuff. I'm not going to let you all just go and take a nap right next to your enemies.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to come over and slit your throat every time.
That makes sense. What's that, hon?
I said I like the realism, the not being able to take a short rest after every single fight is a bit it's boring, honestly.
Well, yeah, that's a way to cheese regain health all the time, and even video games do that. You can't blah 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 while there are enemies nearby is the typical message that you would get if there's any danger nearby. You can't fast travel because there's enemies nearby. You can't rest because there are enemies nearby. So something similar here makes sense. So yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I kind of like that too, and that's kind of why I was trying to kind of twist the screw a little bit for you guys, where I'm like, all right, they're not going to constantly walk out of the building and let you guys shoot them one by one for the entire night, all right?
I tried. I really tried. That's me. That's all me. I know. That's how I like to do. I'm all about that thin the numbers strategy.
Well, we've been conditioned by Skyrim and all these games where it's you shoot a guy, there's two guys standing together, you shoot one of them in the head with the arrow, but you're stealth, so the other guy goes, what was that?
Yeah, and then he goes back
to my routine.
Right. There's a dead guy standing right, and he's still talking. There's no one there anymore, but he's still talking to this dead guy. Yeah.
It's so. I tell Vince all the time. Nick is not gonna let you just let enemies walk into your arrows, okay?
I hid the bodies,
you know what?
so technically, they wouldn't know. So
I've been doing a little thinking too, so I got some brainstorming. I've been brainstorming.
Okay.
Next time you try to do that, something might happen.
Okay, interesting. Okay, note to self, I gotta come up with other strategies now.
Yep.
How can I beat the DM at his own game?
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I'm not very smart, so it's not hard to outsmart.
No, come on now. No,
I'm trying my best over here.
You've been actually very lenient, because I was actually
Yeah.
reading up, in order to make this quiz for later, I read up on a lot of stuff, and we've been resting, and weeks have gone by. We have not consumed rations. Well, no, you've been nice to us. Like, there's a daily cost. We have to spend like a gold piece every day so like, there's stuff that we should be consuming or doing that you're letting us get away with. So like, you've been really nice to us. So yeah.
Every single time, especially like my last couple campaigns, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start tracking weight. I'm gonna start making sure that the rations are being used and bought. At least this time, I'm holding you guys accountable for your arrows. I used to just say, whatever, just don't pay attention to them. So I'm trying to get better at that stuff, and I do think it adds something to the game to actually have to think about this sort of stuff.
Right.
The problem is that a lot of the time it feels like we're sort of, I don't know, like, I don't want to say like racing against the clock, but it's like there's so much stuff to bog you down in a campaign already that to sit there and be like, all right, and this is actually in that. I'm sorry.
I said it's very micromanagey.
It can be. It absolutely can be. And then it's like Kane posted that video of that YouTube video where it's like how to like torture your players or whatever. And it's true. Like, it might be cool, especially for you as a ranger, to sort of like have a little RP experience for how you go out and collect food when you're in the wild. But it's like, do we want to sit there and take an hour out of our what could be combat or more, quest stuff? It's like one of those things where it's kind of like, what do your players want? And at this point, I'm thinking you guys just want to keep on going through these quests and sort of keep progressing the story. So I try not to bog down everything with like the stuff that you should be. I should be as a DM holding you accountable for. But it's like,
I feel like
I'm trying to just. Yeah, sorry, please.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. All I was going to say is I try to just keep things fun. And if I get the feeling that you guys don't care about keeping track of your rations, if that doesn't add to the RP experience for you, then what's the point of bogging you down with it? If somebody came up to me and said, I think it would be cool to track this stuff, then maybe I would reconsider and maybe we'd start looking at that stuff a little closer.
You mentioned ticking clock, and that got me to thinking, like, I would actually not like it, because if we start consuming rations and gold pieces every day in this world, if there are only a limited number of side quests that give you money or give you something, eventually you're going to reach a point, let's say you take your time in this world to explore. What if you run out of quests to do that give you money, or run out of things to kill that give you money, or whatever, and then now you've got to pay for your survival and there's nothing left in the world to do to get you what you need to survive? Is that like, so that's in my head, I'm thinking ticking clock. We've got to complete this adventure before that happens, before we run out of things to do and our supplies dwindle to nothing. Is that a thing? Or
as a DM, I would never allow that to happen. So there's always going to be, even if it's not in the book, because we are going off a campaign book right now, but let's say you guys do all the quests and you collect all the rewards and everything, and still it takes you like another year to spend all that gold before you finish the actual main story quest. I would still say that there's quests out there. I would just have to come up with them by myself.
Gotcha.
There's always going to be something to do. I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay.
My main concern is just bogging you down with stuff that is not fun to keep track of unless you find it fun. And in my opinion,
you have to roll a d20 every time you pick a berry.
God. Yeah. It's like, oh, you squished it again.
Yeah,
Sorry.
darn.
I would like that whole micromanagement a little bit, because I think it would add a little bit more to a story. I think it could, at least. I think
a lax consumables system, not one that was so harsh that you had to. Yeah. Oh well, we're gonna starve today unless we go out and get this done, and then next, we're gonna starve today if we don't. If it were more lax, where we spend this much this for this week and that's it, or whatever. So like a dwindling supply, but at a slower pace. That way we can still have the freedom to do what we want and not be so bogged down with stuff. Like I wouldn't mind something like that.
The problem, the problem I think would be like trying to manage everyone's stuff, because you don't know if other people are going to be keeping track of it on their end correctly. I would think that the GM would need another GM, just to keep track of
an assistant. Yeah.
Well, actually, the contrary. You know what ends up usually happening is usually a player just ends up having to take on all the responsibility, and that the player just like becomes like the party's accountant. They have control over all the gold, and every time there's gold, it goes to that player because they always take care of the gold. And then it's like the same would probably be true for rations and that kind of stuff too, where it's like just let one person take care of it. They can worry about it, and if they enjoy it, it's great. If they don't enjoy it, then it's like it's giving them more work.
So they're the banker in Monopoly, I guess.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I kind of want to be this banker.
The problem is that your group has to trust you.
Yeah.
This is very true.
I think that you're going to spend money on releasing the
No one is going to trust Xana with this money.
I have a skill of 4 and sleight of hand, so yeah, maybe it's not the best.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about the Warlock before we move on? Anything good about the Warlock?
Oh, I said I would talk about Eldritch Blast really quickly.
Oh, go for it.
So the reason that this spell is considered so incredibly good is because for cantrips, of course, cantrip means you can cast it infinitely. There's no limit to how many times you can cast it in a day or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So at first level, it's a 1d10, just boom, 1d10. So it's pretty much the same as any cantrip at that level for any class. The thing is that as you gain levels in the Warlock, you start to get 2 beams. So now instead of shooting 1, you shoot 2 for 2d10. And then there's other stuff as a Warlock you can do to add even more damage to that. So they have the ability to sort of stack damage into this one cantrip that they can use infinitely. And it becomes like casting a spell, but just with their cantrip, because of this insane amount of damage it can stack up to. So that's why when people talk about what's the most overpowered cantrip, people will say Eldritch Blast. I still maintain Vicious Mockery, but
you're biased with those bards.
I definitely am.
Is the Warlock the only class that can get the Eldritch Blast?
So generally, yes. There's some ways, like there's a feat called Magic Initiate, where we were talking about the ability score improvements, where you can turn your 16 dex into an 18. You can forego that and pick up a feat instead. So like this one, Magic Initiate, allows you to pick up a cantrip from a different class's spell list, as well as a spell from a different class. But there's a few small ways where you might be able to do it, but it's not as good because you don't have the stuff that the Warlock gets to make it even better. And that's why it's so powerful as a cantrip, because these Warlocks get stuff to like do more damage with it, extend the range, make it push foes away. There's a lot of stuff only Warlock can do with it.
It seems like spellcasters in general are better at doing damage. It seems like the rules for hitting with a spell are different than hitting with a melee or ranged attack. With a melee or ranged attack, you have to roll a d20 and then hit. You have to get your hit roll to be above a certain number. It seems like with a spell, like Kayan is constantly casting this poison stuff. And then there is something called like a dexterity save or whatever save. And it seems like the requirement for the save, like the number needed to beat the save is the odds are more favorable. Is that fair to say? Or are the odds equally as good for a spellcaster versus a melee ranged attack?
I'll say one thing really quick about it too, is that there's a lot of spells that require an attack roll, just like a weapon attack would.
Okay.
So it's not just melee or physical ranged characters that are dealing with that. And as far as the saving throws go, it really depends, because if you're fighting a wolf or something that might have like a pretty high dexterity, and you try to do a spell against it that requires a dexterity saving throw, because they are just so innately dexterous, there's going to be a very small chance that they fail it. But I mean, that's the thing with casters though too, is like if you are fighting a very stupid ogre and you have a spell that targets their intelligence as a saving throw, then you might have a much better chance of the spell going off.
Okay, so where melee and ranged weapons, it's like, well, no matter who you are, you're probably going to be somewhat vulnerable to our attack, whereas a caster is going to be like, you're either going to be weak, neutral, or strong against this particular attack or whatever. So I see what you're saying.
And sometimes you don't know either. You don't know if that ogre has a very low intelligence, but maybe for some reason he has a really high wisdom. You just don't know. So you kind of have to roll. You have to gamble a little bit.
Gotcha.
And just hope that the dice are in your favor.
Cool. All right. All right. So we're on, I guess, the wizard now, and we've talked about the wizard a lot. And you said that they've got a pretty wide variety of different skills. Anything about them that stands out the most?
I'll just say one thing about the wizard, which is the way that wizards sort of get their subclass is that they specialize in a school of magic. And that's why I was saying that a wizard might be a very good necromancer, because if you choose to go into the necromancy spell school as your specialization, then you get some bonuses for trying to like raise dead and that sort of stuff. There's always been a great philosophical debate in Dungeons and Dragons if raising the dead is an evil act or if it is not. I'm not touching that one with the 10-foot pole.
And then you bring religion into the mix, and then it's like, well, I'm sure not touching that. Yeah.
The thing is, I think it's very cool. When I played a wizard, I did a divination wizard, which is their spell feature or their class feature is they roll 2 dice every day, and then they get to keep those d20s and put them to the side. So if I roll like let's take it to the extremes. I'll roll a natural 20 and a natural 1 on my dice for that day. So at any point during the day, I could say, like the DM might say, okay, the creature rolls to hit you, and it's a 27. I might go, actually, you know what? It's a 1. I get to take one of those dice that I put aside and put it anywhere that I feel like putting it. I just have to announce it.
Nice.
Yeah. Very cool ability. And every class or subclass of wizards gets something that's thematic with the school of magic that they chose. So I think it's actually a really cool, flavorful system that wizards have. And then, of course, being able to copy spells into your spell book is probably one of the most powerful things.
It seems like a whole party of wizards would be viable just because of all the different schools that are out there. Is that a thing? Do people do that? Run just nothing but wizards, and then you're a necromancy wizard and you're this other wizard type. Is that possible, or is that like, are you going to be lacking in something if you do that?
I've never heard of that, and I have to imagine that level 1 would be an absolute nightmare.
Yes, that's true.
Like 6 or 7 health. Like a couple of goblin arrows would just wipe out the entire party instantly. But I mean, heck, if they made it to like level 3, level 4, they'd be a force to be reckoned with. Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool.
I would so do that.
That's actually such a cool idea. I love that idea. Actually.
I would love to try something like if the necromancer could like summon these things to tank in the front while this one over here does this some kind of healing or protection thing, and then this one over here does. I think that would be awesome. It's just a bunch of glass cannons, but it would be fun.
Oh yeah, with all their little features combined, it would be cool. Actually, I would love to see that.
Mm-hmm. That was the last one, except for these bonus ones. We talked off camera about this. The Artificer, Masters of Invention. Artificers use ingenuity and magic to unlock extraordinary capabilities in objects. And you said this was like a character class that was introduced later as part of some kind of new adventure or expansion or something?
Yeah, so they released a new book, Wizards of the Coast, and they introduced this whole new class, the Artificer. And I actually managed to play one in a campaign. We didn't get too far. I think it's technically still ongoing, but we haven't played in like a year or maybe even more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a question mark in itself.
Gotcha.
But I thought it was very cool. I was playing a little gnome because it felt right for a little tinkerer, right? Like a gnome tinkerer, just like in Warcraft or something.
Right. Neat.
The class itself it's very cool. I didn't go for this one, but there's sort of like this subclass where you basically become like Iron Man. You have this like power armor that fits into you, and like you can go in the front and be like a melee fighter. It's really cool. I went for this one that's called the Artillerist, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. And basically I could summon this little tiny cannon that would just like do a ton of damage every single turn, and I could still be casting spells while this thing was just like passively next to me doing a ton of damage. It's a really cool class. I think if anything, that one fits less in the fantasy setting than the monk does. So if you want to, so monk haters come at me, bro. You know.
Yeah.
But
this thing sounds like a steampunk engineer. That's
exactly how it plays.
Wow.
That's cool.
Like putting down like mechanical turrets and other things. Like I don't know.
And they're sort of like one of the stunted spellcasters, like the ranger or the paladin, where they do get spellcasting, but it's at a much slower pace than a full spellcaster.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff that they get in trade for that, like their power armor, their little cannon, the ability to brew potions like crazy, it's really cool. I would suggest it. I enjoyed mine.
Cool. All right. And there was one other one, but we're not going to touch on it because I don't think any of us know about it. This Critical Role has something called the Blood Hunter, a fanatical slayer that embraces dark knowledge to destroy evil. Primary ability, strength or dexterity, and intelligence.
I read into it. I don't know much about it. I didn't dig too deep because I've never had anyone ask me if they could play one in my campaign, and I've never had much interest in playing one. So
no, understandable. And yeah, no problem. But yeah, it's just something that people can look into on their own if they want to. So yeah, that was all of the classes here. Any other thoughts or comments or anything that we possibly missed before we move on to our surprise quiz?
Oh, I forgot about the quiz.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that I know sort of Critical Role gets a lot of hate as being sort of like the Matt Mercer effect and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And plenty of people love it, obviously.
Right.
But it just makes me so happy that Dungeons and Dragons has sort of exploded again. You know, it used to be big, and then it sort of became like this meme that like only like the sweaty nerds were playing it.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of back into this part in society where people seem to be embracing it. Mm-hmm. And it's like cool if you play it, and I'm just really happy because it just it brings me a lot of happiness, and I think it brings a lot of people a lot of happiness.
As an adult, I think I definitely appreciate it more. For whatever reason, when I was younger, I don't know if it was I just didn't get it or I thought it was stupid. Like all I'm doing is rolling dice. Like I hate that RNG. Like what if I constantly roll negative and all of my attacks miss? And like I would rather play something I know I can level up in and guarantee do well in, you know what I mean? So as a kid, but now that I'm an adult and it's more like casual storytelling, there's more of an open worldness to this and more, you can be as nerdy lore as you want to be, or just if you want to be a stat by the book person and only care about, like Idly and I are in this for two different reasons. Idly is in this because she loves the lore, getting into her character, and embracing the weird that comes along with it, I think.
The story, I like to see what
right.
It's up to.
Me, I'm in it because I like the stat building, the character building. Like when I play an RPG, my goal, and I skip when I get a quest in an RPG, I skip the dialogue and I give me the quest marker. Just give me the quest marker so I can do this quest, so I can level up. And now my character is level 80 or whatever, and I'm a super BA. I can kill everything. That's why I play RPGs, because I like the character and stat building. So, but I like that. Like we're playing this game, and I'm in it for one reason, she's in it for another reason, but we're both enjoying it. So as an adult, I think I appreciate it more than I do as a kid. Do you have a preference? Or do you just like it all? Is there a particular reason why you play it?
I think that I tend to prefer the more story elements of it, and I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm the same as you. Like even when I was just playing Griftlands recently, it's like I was trying to read the quest text and everything that was happening, but like an hour into it, I was like, click, just trying to click through everything. You know what I mean? Like it's tough, man. It's tough. It's like I got work tomorrow. Let me get
yes, exactly.
It's bad.
I don't care about the chord of just give me my 5 bonus stat points or whatever that I get for completing this quest.
Exactly. It's like, get on with it. Yeah. But it's funny because in D&D, I really appreciate the story and the role play, and I think maybe not every DM. I think for a lot of DMs, it's sort of like a heartwarming moment when the players start role playing with each other, and you're not even involved with it. You're not even playing a character at that point. They're just talking to each other, and you kind of like feel like you're sort of have like made this world that they really feel like immersed in. And that's something that I struggle with a lot. I'm trying to get better with that kind of stuff, where I'm trying to make the world feel more alive, but it's tough. And I'm not a super experienced DM. So I'm still working on that. But
we're enjoying the session, for the record.
Yeah.
We're having a great time.
I appreciate that, and that's the thing with me too. Is like a lot of the DMs are like very rules is written. This is the rule. Don't break the rule. For me, it's like it's called the rule of cool. If I think it's cool, I'll probably let it slide.
Yeah,
like I just want everyone to have fun. I want it to be something that we're laughing and having a good time. And
right.
As long as everyone's having fun, then I feel like my job is done. I know the rules pretty well. I don't know every single rule, I'm sure, but I'll let things slide if I think that people will.
I think rules are meant to be broken. I mean, rules are there to help structure something, but like at its heart, Dungeons and Dragons is a game, and games are a form of entertainment. And when you start harping too much on rules and regulations, I think that takes away from the fun element. Like when you get so caught up in rules and whether or not you can and can't do something, you forget why you're playing it in the first place. And I don't think that's what a game is supposed to be about. Like you said, I think if a rule can be broken to make it more fun, then let's do it, because it's there for our entertainment, not to get frustrated, not to limit us. I think, so I'm completely with you on that. That's why I like your style of DMing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who tend to be like rules lawyers, as they're called.
Yeah,
they
I couldn't stand that.
argue, and it's like, listen, man. And it's funny because in the books, they say the first rule is that the DM chooses the rules. So the DM's word is supposed to be law. So if I say something that doesn't agree with the book, that doesn't matter because I make the rules. So it's like I can choose to break rules. I could choose to make up rules on the spot. The DM has the final say. So when you have these people who are rules lawyers, it ends up being like sort of like
it's a buzzkill.
It just creates it creates a negative environment, and it's like, why? We're having fun here. Let's just have fun.
Right. I'm noticing people that are passionate about things they like sometimes get so caught up in it that they can't take any sort of criticism about something, or they can't imagine what life would be like if you think outside the box just for a little bit. And being passionate about something is great, but being too passionate about something to where you can't have fun anymore, like that's not what this game is all about. So yeah. I think that's the problem there. But
I have my lines. I remember there was one time where I had this player who he was calling the tavern a bar, and I was like, whoa.
I don't know what you're talking about. That person sounds like a jerk. Now, what would be worse is if this person continued to call it a bar throughout the entire session. That person just deserves to be banned outright, I think.
Oh yeah, no, I had to have a talk with him. It turned out good.
You took him out back, and yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. I had to bring that up.
That was still fun. That was funny. Listen, man, come with me. We gotta have a talk. Oh man,
we have fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I swear I'll let you go to bed. We'll do this quiz real quick.
Sure.
So you're gonna ace this. I guess I'll ask Idly the question first. Idly can answer it. And then Nick can give you the correct answer because he'll know all of these, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe.
I don't. As someone that doesn't know too much about D&D, I had to pick on easy stuff. For example, which of the following is not one of the 6 basic stats? Is it Constitution, Charisma, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Vitality? Which
not
one of the 6 basic stats?
Basic stats?
Yes. Is it
Charisma?
Constitution, Charisma, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Vitality?
Charisma or Vitality? I think it's Charisma.
Okay. And what's the correct answer, Nick?
Vitality.
Vitality is correct.
I thought Charisma was like on the other box.
No, so you have these basic stats, which would be Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, Intelligence, Charisma. I'm probably missing one, but I think that's all of them. But Vitality is basically the same thing as Constitution if you're looking from an RPG perspective.
Yeah. So, yes, Charisma was
Dang
wrong.
it.
Yeah.
Wait, Dexterity in there?
Dexterity,
Yes,
Okay.
dexterity is, yeah. So I didn't have dexterity in that multiple choice, but yes. So vitality is not in there. And then for Nick's,
That is correct.
yes. So Nick, good job.
1 Nick, 0 me.
Yeah.
I'm ready now.
All right. So number 2, what is the result of rolling a 1 when rolling on a death saving throw? Does it equal 2 failures? Is it disadvantage on the next roll, or is it instant death?
Instant death.
All right, and Nick, what is the correct answer?
It is 2 fails on your death saving throws.
All right, so again, Idly, we're going to go with...
I should have known.
And then Nick's is...
Correct!
I should have known that, dang it. Okay.
It's all good. Okay. You'll know this one. A natural D20. A natural D20 is known as... Is it an epic roll, a perfect roll, hacks roll, super roll, or a critical roll?
A bra size. Sorry.
What?
Correct!
I mean, yeah.
All right. Can you repeat that again?
Sure. A natural D20 is known as an epic roll, a perfect roll, a hacks roll, a super roll, or a critical roll.
It's known as one of the first two, super roll or an epic roll.
Epic roll, perfect roll, hacks roll, super roll, or critical roll.
It's either epic or perfect.
Is that
I
what you
think it's perfect.
Nick, would you care to weigh in?
Come on, you got to think about the Twitch show. It's Critical Role.
Is it really?
Yes.
Critical, yeah, it's a critical.
That's why the name of the show is Critical Role.
Oh, I thought it was just like a clever title.
No.
And if you were to roll a natural 1, that would be a critical fail.
Yes, very good.
Oh.
Oh, I hope that wasn't a question.
It was not. So
All right, 3 wrong.
No, you're fine. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're gonna have to roll some saving throws here pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, really. My character's gonna die already.
All right, if you come across a creature with an elk's head eating the corpse of a person, you would probably identify it as
Vince.
a vampire, a werewolf, a bugbear, a wendigo, or an owlbear.
A Wendigo.
A wendigo. And what do you think, Nick?
I agree with that. Did you say an elk's head?
Yes, elk's head.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
Okay.
That is correct.
Wait, so it's not a Wendigo?
It is a wendigo. He just agreed with you. Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Very good.
I don't know what that is. I just used deductiveness.
I figured that's what you would do. I didn't know what a wendigo was either until I looked it up.
I thought you said a wolf's head at first, so I was like, werewolf, but I then it's like, it didn't sound like wolves.
No, it was elk. You're good. Good job, guys. All right. Another creature one. If you come across a horse with a mane and a tail made of fire, you would identify it as a unicorn, a nightmare, a pegasus, or a warhorse.
Shoot. It's either nightmare or warhorse. Wait, the mane was made of fire. What was the other one?
The mane and tail were made of fire.
I'm gonna say a nightmare.
Nightmare. And what do you think, Nick?
Agreed.
Correct!
Yeah. Good job. You're redeeming yourself. Good job. Now this one, Nick handed to you on a silver platter. What is the largest / biggest monster in D&D? Is it a green dragon, a Tarisk, a white dragon, or a beholder?
Terrace, because I think it started with a T.
Yes.
Correct!
And I don't even have to ask you.
If you gave me a choice where they all started with T, I wouldn't have known.
All right. Next time I'll predict the answers that Nick gives away prior to the quiz.
I'm going to randomly spoil it because I have like, diarrhea of the mouth.
Yes.
I would have said like Teflon or something.
Yeah, Teflon. Anti-stick.
Also terrifying.
Yes. Exactly. Which of the following is not... No, you're fine. Which of the following is not a spell or a cantrip? Greater Restoration, Frost Arrow, Mirror Image, Tiny Servant, or Create Food and Water?
Oh, crap.
Which is not a spell or a cantrip? Greater Restoration, Frost Arrow, Mirror Image, Tiny Servant, or Create Food and Water. And I had to sift through hundreds of spells to try and find one that wasn't... that was a pain.
Create Food and Water.
Okay, and what do you think, Nick?
Or Tiny Servant, one of those.
I'm gonna feel bad if I'm wrong about this, but I'm fairly certain it's Frost Arrow.
Yes, and then Idly,
you're fired.
All right, so good job, Frost Arrow. I had to find.
I have to say, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
I just wanted to say, I thought you were considering picking Tiny Servant for Zana. That's why I'm surprised you thought that wasn't a real spell.
I thought her servant was just servant, not a tiny servant.
Or it might have been like Invisible Servant or something. It was some sort of servant-based spell that you were very seriously considering taking.
I was, but I didn't know how specific it was. That's why I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
Fair enough.
A tiny
Fair enough.
Good job.
That was a good one.
You did good.
Why was it a pain for you?
Because I don't know these things off the top of my head, so I had to go through... I wrote down the 4 that I saw, but then I'm like, okay, which of these isn't on this list? So I had to come up with something in my head that wasn't on the list, and I'm like, there's something for everything. There's hundreds of spells. So I'm like, okay, arrows. Is there a fire arrow? Is there an acid arrow? Yes, yeah. Oh, frost. There's no frost arrow. Okay, I'm good. So... I had to come... Yeah, that was a pain. And
I'm surprised you just didn't get like a D&D pre-made quiz. A bunch of...
I did Google some of these, but that particular one was not on any quiz that I saw.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Which of the following is not a piece of equipment? Dog sled, great sword, compass, spyglass, or whip?
Dog sled.
Dog sled. What do you think, Nick?
I agree. Yeah.
Huh. I actually stumped you on one. Wow, okay.
Whip?
It was not a whip.
What is it, the spyglass?
The compass.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, unless I'm wrong, but I saw the spyglass as a thing, the whip was a thing, dog sled and great...
You know what? You're right, because there's actually a feat in the game which says you always know what the direction north is. So if there was a compass in the game, why would you ever take that feat?
Right. I guess.
You got me.
Wow. I can't believe that. And that's another one I had to think about. I'm like, I'm thinking, okay, what piece of equipment would an adventurer have typically? A compass so they know where they're going. And that's why I put compass there. Interesting.
That was a good question.
All right. Cool. Well, I'll give myself a...
Stay a while and listen.
Fine. I'll give myself...
Wow.
All right. So... All right, next one. Ranged attacks on adjacent enemies result in penalty to attack damage, disadvantage on the attack roll, or a free opportunity strike by the enemy. Ranged attacks on adjacent enemies result in penalty to attack damage, disadvantage on the attack roll, or free opportunity strike by the enemy.
Free opportunity strike.
Okay, and what do you think, Nick?
Okay, so I know that the answer actually is disadvantage on the attack roll.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to give Adley some credit here because in previous editions, it was an opportunity attack. If you tried to cast a spell, you tried to do a range attack, and there was an enemy next to you, they would get an opportunity attack.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well
but
then...
in 5th edition, the correct answer is disadvantage.
Okay, well, I will still give an Idly this one.
This is Sparta!
That's sure. I guess that's correct. Sure. So, good job. All right, so let's see. Which is not a damage type? Cold. There's cold, radiant, arcane, force, and necrotic.
A damage type?
Yes, so different elemental effects, if you will.
Cold, arcane.
There's cold, radiant, arcane, force, and necrotic.
Force damage. I say force. That's like Star Wars stuff.
Ah, okay. And what does Nick think?
I gotta go with arcane.
Arcane is correct.
That is
very
correct.
Good. Idly, you get... Good job.
Oh man, I'm doing so well.
You're doing very well.
It's difficult, man, because I agree with you. Force is such a strange damage type for D&D. It's a very strange, but it is what it is.
If it wasn't force, I was gonna say cold, but I guess I would have been wrong too.
Yeah, arcane is not a damage type. It's going to be, if you're an arcane caster, you're doing fire, frost, lightning, but not arcane.
Well, it's elemental. Dang it.
Mm.
You must feel the force around you.
Arcane damage, I think it's from Licton Battle Mage. That's probably why.
Maybe. Sure. All right. We're almost done. I swear.
Okay.
Oh, no, you're fine.
A target behind half cover. And this is something that we don't do a whole lot of in our sessions, but there's like quarter cover, half cover. No.
Mm-hmm.
Half cover, it's either quarter or 3/4. I don't remember. Or in full cover. But a target behind half cover gets -2 to damage, +2 to armor class and dexterity saving throws, +3 to dodge, or a free reaction.
Oh, Jesus, I don't know. I pick none of them.
Wow. So basically, don't hide behind cover ever, because it's not worth it.
No, wait, hold on. Repeat the multiple choices again?
Sure. -2 to damage. So any damage they take, -2 to damage. +2 to armor class and dexterity saving throws. +3 to dodge, or a free reaction.
I said -2.
-2 to damage. And what do you think, Nick?
You know what? If you would give me different options here, I might have flubbed this, but I know that it's -2 or +2 to AC and dexterity saving throws.
You got it. Yes, very good.
Dang.
If you had said +2 or +4 or +6, I would have been like, oh god, which one is half cover?
That's funny.
Yeah, full cover is, I think, +5 to AC and dex saving throws, from what I remember reading.
I'm such a bad DM when it comes to that kind of stuff.
No, it's okay. I know that I hide behind trees a lot. I don't know if that's considered half cover or what. But
if you're fully behind a tree, it's probably full cover. So
gotcha.
Depends.
And nothing can hit you behind. From what I was reading, if you're behind full cover, nothing can hit you save for a magical spell that is aimed, like, that has some kind of AoE effect. From what I was reading. But again, you're the GM. I just thought it was interesting.
No, that's absolutely true. So depending on the situation and the angle and all this other stuff that you kind of have to take into account, you can absolutely get full cover and essentially be untargetable.
But again, you're the boss, so like, again, the way you've been doing it is perfect. I'm just saying. I was reading all these cool tidbits, and I like learning all this cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that sort of it's a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm. There's several pages. Like when I was making this quiz, there was I was on the Dungeons and Dragons website, and there's this guide that they have. It is chapters. Like, it's broken up into chapters, and I'm like, oh my god. The spellcasting chapter alone. So, all right, so last question. Mm-hmm. True or false? Nick is an awesome GM. So...
Tough one.
I tried to make the hardest one last, but... So we're waiting for Idly.
Yeah, what are you gonna say, Idly? I'm just kidding.
It's true. Okay.
Amazing. He's an amazing GM.
I'm sure Nick has an answer for this too, but
I'm going to go with I'm not an amazing DM. I'm probably somewhere in the range of decent to good. I wouldn't say I was amazing.
That is actually incorrect. So
He's amazing.
he's amazing. It's just So
I try.
You fudged
my
two.
goal is. What's that?
You fudged two questions.
Fudged two. I'll take that. Oh, you know what? For an amazing DM, 2 questions missed is pretty bad, though. I'm just going to point that out.
You're fired.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
No, all joking aside, I think that a DM's job is to just make sure that the players are having fun. So,
Agreed.
Even if you're like me and you're not the best at role playing and you're not the best at making a world seem like it's a living thing and you're not the best at describing every little thing, as long as the players are having fun, I think you should give it your best shot.
Agreed.
Yeah. I've always wanted to be like a GM or DM or whatever, but I don't care about the numbers. Like, I just want to make the world. I'll hire someone else to do like all the stats and stuff.
Oh my God. Listen, next time, me and you, co-GMs, all right? I'll take care of all the rules. You take care of all the talking, all right?
Man, the story would be like something worthy of Picasso. Like, just stuff would be all over the place.
No, it would be amazing. What are you talking about?
I'd walk outside of the town. It would not look the same as it did 2 minutes ago. Like,
It's
parallel
so
universes.
detail-oriented.
You're just constantly like flipping through planes of existence.
Yeah, right.
You don't know where you are at any given moment.
And then for a half an hour, she describes a rock. Like, just...
Yes. Every
You think it
plane.
might look like a dog, but then you take another look and
right.
it's like,
All right, you got to roll to see if it's a dog or a rock. Yay.
Every tree you pass by will have a name and a story behind it.
Wow. And we have to sit
the
through
Druid
each
would love
story.
that.
Wow.
I just took a quiz, like a what is your race, your D&D race quiz, and apparently I'm a lawful good halfling.
Wow, lawful good. I'm shocked.
Mm.
That was really weird.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna need everyone to take this later. This is
I don't even know what I would be. Yeah, you have to send the link to me so I can try it.
Yeah, you should post it in the Discord because I'm curious too.
Just to see what I should have rolled instead of what I did roll.
Right.
So.
Find out what my D&D spirit animal is.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much, Nick. It was a pleasure having you on. Oh, by the way, is DM or GM? I forgot to ask. Is it DM or GM? I think GM was what they used to call them, and then DM. Like, what came first, and what's the preferred thing?
Oh, jeez. So I got 3 wrong. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I always say DM, the Dungeon Master. It's Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
GM just means Game Master, which is effectively the same thing. So if somebody said, hey, GM, can I do this? I probably wouldn't bat an eye. And if somebody said, hey, DM, can I do this?
Gotcha.
Wouldn't bat an eye. Same thing, really.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You say that you don't have a whole lot of experience. You totally rocked this podcast. So thank you so much for stopping by and helping us with this. And, hopefully everyone else enjoyed it too. So thank you so much. And if you guys stick around, you'll get the Patreon thank yous. Oh, I forgot. Spanish sentence of the week. How could I do this without Nick? All right, I take that back.
I think I forgot about that.
We were having so much fun with the D&D. I completely forgot. We got to do this real quick.
Sorry,
I
Nick.
thoroughly enjoyed that quiz, by the way. That was
Oh, thank you. I tried.
Yeah, I did too.
I really tried. All right, so we can't do this without the...
You guys are working together to try and translate it.
Yeah, so we gotta... Okay. I'll bring that in. All right.
I think the second half means in all of the schools, right? Escuela is school, I want to say. I'm not sure. My Spanish is dreadful.
Getting back to previous Spanish sentences of the week, Estas is esta, like an esta. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. So esta classes. Esta classes debarian. That's a type of dog. Debarian. And
You're so wise.
Yeah, I try. You haven't been to the part of Spain that I've been to.
No,
we speak a different language.
I'm not nearly as well traveled as you are, so I was
Clearly. Impartial. In today, less maybe excuses or so. Esta, the female Esta, has a class of dog that she likes to impart on today's excuses. So she's blaming this dog. Esta likes to blame this dog for everything. This barbarian.
Oh, you know what? I think she's saying that that Esta is claiming that the dog ate her homework. That's her excuse.
Oh, all right. I will defer to your judgment.
I'm just...
No, I like that. So I think we got it. So I don't think Idly even has to give us the answer because I think that's it. All right.
Wow.
What was it?
Well, with your brainstorming, I think you got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Totally right.
All right. Well, then we win.
Nailed it. This is too easy.
Next time we need a harder one.
You say I don't give myself enough credit, and maybe you're right, because I'm pretty sure we just killed that thing.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
all right. So it says, estas clases deberían, I can even say, impartirse en todas las escuelas, which means these classes should be taught in all schools.
See,
very good.
Joking aside, I got the second half.
You did. Right. You totally did.
Escuelas.
The first half, I couldn't even begin to guess. Although I guess classes like to them.
Classes in school, exactly. Dogging the homework.
We weren't as far off as we could have been, at least.
True. I consider a 25% translation to be a victory. That might be an F in school, but I'll take the 25%.
Hey, this is America, baby. 25%
exactly.
Pretty good.
Yes, it's above zero, so technically it's a win.
It's not in the negatives. That's not.
Yes, so we win. So
very good.
All right. Well, thanks again, Nick. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure having you on. And if anytime you want to do a follow-up to this podcast, feel free to brainstorm. I'll be happy to have you back, and we can do more D&D stuff on here.
He'll be my new co-host, or your new co-host, right?
Well, I'm not going to say a word.
Yeah, every time you're like, we're taking applications.
That's when you...
job interview at this point.
All right, so because she brought that up, I will just remove her from... So yes, we are now accepting applications. No, I'm
yep.
All right, I'll send my email. All right.
Yes, send your resume to dgapodcast@yahoo.com.
As long as you don't do that thing where you make me upload the resume and then I have to type everything on the resume.
Oh, that is so annoying.
Forget it. Then I quit.
Yeah. No, I'm not LinkedIn. You're fine.
No. All joking aside, I want to say thank you guys so much for having me. I had a lot of fun, and I could talk about D&D for hours, as you've just found out personally.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed myself, and thank you guys for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
For being part of this. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Of course. It was a lot of fun.
All right, so we got a little bit of housekeeping to do, specifically our Patreon and Twitch supporters. I want to, again, thank them for all of their support and for helping us to pay the bills. So our Patreon subscribers, Ratsey's pledged $135 this month for a lifetime of $3,500. Scotty R pledged $100 for a lifetime of $1,710. Brian pledged $50 for a lifetime of $500. Greg Howe pledged $10 for a lifetime of $442. Mindalot pledged $5 for a lifetime of $90. Rip Alpha, Alyssa Barrett, and Rapid Amoeba all pledged $1 this month. Rip Alpha has a lifetime of $47, and Alyssa and Rapid Amoeba both have a lifetime of $6. So thank you so much. I did send out keys tonight to the top 4. So Ratsy, Scotty, Brian, and Greg, King Bobcat, check your inboxes and let me know if the keys work. Twitch supporters. These are subscribers at the $5 level. White Knight 74648, my brother, has subscribed for 35 months. He's on a 35-month streak. Bessa 702, 33-month streak. Mistama 18-month streak. Misa 88, 6-month streak. Rabbit Amoeba 6-month streak. ZZ's Journey 1 month. S Princess 84, 3-month streak. Nick Beard 5, he's the guy that was just on, 2-month streak. And the Giggities, 1-month streak. So thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. New releases and sales, just because of the length of this podcast, we went over with the D&D stuff, but I was happy. I'm just going to say that in terms of sales, check out Green Man Gaming. They've got this month-long sale going on, best ever sale. In fact, I just released a separate video outlining some of the games that I think would be good to pick up. So go check out that video. But as far as like other new releases and sales, I guess Valheim really is the new release that everyone is talking about right now, and I think you can pick that up for $20 on Steam's early access program, and we're having a good time with it. It's like an open world sandboxy game, but yeah, I'll just forego the new releases and sales this week. Again, just check out Green Man Gaming and on Humble Bundle. I have an affiliation with those two, and I'll have links in the below description. So support me by buying games through those links. All right, well, that's it for this week, episode 20. Thank you so much. And again, thanks, Idly, for sticking around. If you guys haven't already subscribed to me on Twitch and YouTube, that way you can stay up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince and Idly. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Just pointing everywhere.